look at the syllabus. I'm going to go through it. I'm not going to read it to you because I know you know how to read, but I want to make sure we pull out the important stuff here. And I'm trying this semester this HyFlex format. The idea is if you want to be here in person, great. If you want to watch it live from wherever you are on the internet, I'm on twitch.tv/EricChinesky. I've actually been using Twitch since before the pandemic, but then the pandemic hit and everything moved online, and I said Zoom is stupid and I don't want to make people turn on webcams, and then staring at a bunch of black screens is silly. So I just stayed on Twitch. It started a couple of years ago. I taught a night class over at U of M Dearborn, and someone said, "Hey, Eric, you talk really fast." I said, "Yeah, I drink a lot of coffee." They said, "It'd be nice if you could record it and we can watch it later." And I said, "Well, I've been watching people on Twitch. I'm a big nerd, and I watch people do stuff for years now. I watched Day 9 on Twitch and some of his StarCraft casting things, and I was like, yeah, well, I can try it. Probably isn't too hard. I can do computers occasionally." So I started just broadcasting on Twitch just so I'd have the backup, the recording automatically. And then if it was winter in Michigan, so there's inclement weather and stuff, it worked out well. People could hop in remote. So I'm going to try keeping that format. So live in person if you want to come, great. Live online if you want, great. Or just I'll export everything out to YouTube and you can watch it asynchronously if you'd like. Yeah.
If we do attend a class remotely via Switch, can we still like open questions?
Yeah, so there's Twitch chat. That's why I have this other screen here actually. So it's got a chat mode. I can show you. I don't think anyone's actually chatted yet. But it'll bring up, I usually have two monitors at home, and this one is stupid and only shows this one, and because it's hooked to that one, so I have two laptops so I can do all this. It shouldn't be so hard in 2021, but so there's a chat that'll happen here, so you can chat in. If that doesn't work well, I can also hop in my Discord server on the voice chat if you want to voice chat in. The only problem with that is there's like a 6-second delay depending on your network latency, so like your question will come a couple seconds after. I'm okay with that. If you prefer that, we can do that option as well. So, and I'm not double dipping. Anytime Twitch does send me money, I donate it to the Student Scholarship Fund over at the University of Michigan Dearborn, where I'm a student and a lecturer. It's kind of fun like that. So far they've paid me one time, and I've got a list of it on the Twitch page. So if you have a Twitch Prime subscription, you can toss it here, and it'll go towards the Student Scholarship Fund over at U of M Dearborn, which is a great place to transfer to if anyone's looking for a 4-year degree, by the way. Not that I'm biased at all. I mean, yeah, I guess I am. But we send a ton of students to OU and barely anybody to U of M Dearborn. And it just makes me a little sad, but that's okay. I guess we're all Oakland County. Anyway, so you have your options there, whichever you want to do, what it's going to work best for you. And it can be different week to week. I don't really care one way or the other. Or if you're more of a morning person and you didn't see that there was a morning class, I have a Monday-Wednesday class from 10 to 11:45 a.m. So they'll be behind you because of Labor Day. So they started ahead, but they're going to be off Monday. So it'll be the Monday will be all the stuff we do on Tuesday. So if you do want to pop in live to that, either come in person, great, watch the Twitch watch those videos. It'll be all, whatever's going to work best for you. So we'll do the same thing between the two sections. And then everything will be out exported on my YouTube channel. And if you're bored and want to get ahead, you can watch last semester's 1500. For anybody who wants to do that as well. That's out there. All right, so let's take a look at the syllabus. Excuse me. Again, this is me, Eric Chinesky. I'm not hard to Google. I'm the only one in the world that I know of. It's nice having a unique last name. This is my college email address. It goes to my phone. This is my cell phone number. I have a desk phone, but I actually started as a full-time faculty member last year, and this is my third time on campus in a year. So I don't use it, and I'm only there like never. So just use my cell phone, and it'll make life a whole lot easier. For office hours, I've got a little form for you folks to fill out to see what is the best time to have office hours. It's around the times I'm available, but then I'll pick the times that work for the most people. And if none of those times work for you, I can also do by appointment meetings. So happy to meet. Discord's great, Zoom's great. Anything we can screen share will work. So I've got a Discord server dedicated for all my classes. There's a channel for this class, the 1500 class. You can pop in and you can post memes in the meme channel. Any sort of fun stuff you want is all fun there. So we meet 6 to 9:45. We probably won't be here until 9:45 most nights. The idea with this course is it's a lab style. So I get bored after hearing myself talk for way shorter than it probably should take for me to get bored of myself. But I'll try to aim to talk no more than 2.5 hours. and then the time after that is for you to practice these things, which is harder to do in a remote world, but it's easier here. I can actually walk around. You guys can try some of the things that we've done in class and practice some of them, even start on the projects if you want. I'm happy to walk around and help with those. Come to campus, watch live or YouTube. For Twitch, it is public, so use whatever username you want. Same with Discord. It's a public server. Anyone can hop in, so you don't have to use your name there. Use a handle if you want. It's all good. I've just taken using Eric Chinesky everywhere because it was easy for me. So anything you want to participate, it's all good. And there's no attendance points. I will say, though, if you don't come and you don't watch the videos, and you'll probably have a hard time. Maybe not. Maybe you're great and you've already done Java before and this is a waste of your time and I'm sorry you have to be here. But typically, actually showing up and doing the things will give you a better score. So our course catalog, I'm not going to read that to you. That's just copy paste. There's no prereqs aside from using a computer, and that's a little bit lower on. Some of these outcomes are things that we assess at a college level for all courses of a given number. So all 1,500 courses have some sort of level of evaluating critical thinking, plus all these common course outcomes. And we look at that across all the sections and make sure everyone is doing a decent job and figure, what's the number? Like if 80% of our students can do it, then we're probably okay, because maybe just 20% just didn't try hard enough or gave up, or, you know, life happens and it was hard. So some of the things we're going to do, these ones are interesting, and we'll have specific parts of the projects and quizzes and things that map to these, and all sorts of assessment nonsense that you probably don't care about. But we'll look at using our IDE. This is our integrated development environment to develop our Java program. We'll edit, compile, and run our program and use the debugger. The debugger is your best friend. This will tell us what is happening behind the scenes in Java, so we can kind of see into behind the scenes step by step by step. It's fantastic. We'll spend a lot of time in the debugger. We'll define constants and variables with primitive data types, understand the use of the variables, related operators, type conversions, basic input and output operations. Probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense. That's okay. We'll get to all those topics when we get there. Can follow Java code, write Java code, utilize branching and flow control. All these things are in quotes, which are weird to be in quotes, but that's, again, copy pasted. You'll write Java code to read from and write to disk files. So instead of it actually just having to be there up and running, we can write to a disk file and load it later. That's actually what most programs do, right? Because we want to be able to get some data or work with the database, but we're not going to get to the database this class. In 2151, you'll probably do some database stuff, which is a lot of fun. We'll make Java classes, create objects of that class with private data members, public accessor, mutator methods, and constructors. It doesn't have to make sense. We'll get there later on. And understand the concepts of scope, variables, objects, and its methods. We'll talk about the core concepts of inheritance. We have to talk about inheritance. It's one of the core principles of object-oriented programming, so that we can do our graphical user interface applications at the second part of the semester. Because it utilizes inheritance. So we want to talk about it, to understand a little bit about it, and then if you do continue on in the software engineering program and take 2151, our Java 2 course, or object-oriented programming in Java, then you'll really spend a lot of time on inheritance. So we just kind of touch on it briefly. We'll write and follow code that utilizes arrays and array lists. They're fantastic. Again, we'll get there. It's okay. And then finally, we make graphical user interface programs with event handling, where there's something you can click on and buttons to click and things to type in, and it's not just a console application that's really ugly. But we're going to spend about 11 weeks doing the ugly stuff before we do the fun stuff, because that's how we're going to get all the basics in. For your textbook, the Murox Java programming, this is new this semester. We used to use a book that cost twice as much, and we decided this one would be better because it's cheaper, and it covers the same stuff plus more, which is actually really cool. Muroc's a nice little private independent publisher. So they've got a physical copy here with this ISBN, or the digital copy here with this ISBN. The 4th edition is not great. It has most of everything except for the Java FX stuff, which we're going to use for the graphical user interface applications. So if you got the 4th, we can make do, but prefer the 5th, but don't go out and spend a bunch of money again if you got the 4th by accident. From the OCC bookstore or your favorite online retailer, go for it there. I'll have a bunch of supplemental software, all the other things we're going to use. GitHub is a source control tool widely used in the industry. I believe it's the most popular. I could double check the numbers here, but pretty sure they're at like 60% market share or something like that last time I looked. They're huge. Enterprise software companies use GitHub a lot. And then we're going to use the GitHub desktop client. It's a free download and install. The account is free. Don't pay for anything here, please. You shouldn't have to. And we'll get you set up there. The desktop client is for interacting with GitHub. Now, if you've used Desire to Learn before, you know you can like attach files for submissions and things. I'm not going to ask you to do that unless I screw up and forget to change it, because it wants to default to ask for files. And I always have to tell it, no, we don't need files. We're going to put everything in GitHub because this tool is made for storing software and collaborating on software. That's why software development companies use it. So all of your code will go into github.com and you'll just send me a link to the website. Makes life really easy. So I can see your code and you don't have to send me attachments, and I don't have to get a full inbox, and then you can't send certain attachments, and it's just obnoxious. Discord again for office hours. I'm not planning on meeting in person in the office. It's small and poorly ventilated, so I just won't be there. I'll do virtual office hours from home. We can use screen sharing software, anything we need. Or we can just meet after class in this nice big room. Some web browser, whatever you prefer should be fine. Netbeans is our integrated development environment. It's a free download. It's open source software here. So this will take you to the page. So the college computers will have it all installed, and there is an option to access a virtual desktop here at the college from home. So you don't need to install everything. That's one route, or you're welcome to install it all on your personal computer. Yeah. If you're familiar with another one, great. I'm going to use Netbeans for everything. So if you have an IDE you like already, that should be fine. It does nice integrations with Java FX, but there's ways to work around that as well. Yep. So you want the latest version here, 12 update 4. You click on download. It says, which one do you want? The bin zip works, but then you don't get the pretty shortcuts. So I always recommend you use the installer for Windows or Mac. Sorry, I'm going to make this quiet. Whichever you have, or Linux. I've not had anybody use Linux yet, but there's an installer for it there. And then it will install it for you to use. And I'll show you how to use it and everything. That one's pretty straightforward. We're going to use the Open JDK. A while back, Java got bought by Oracle, and the lovely people at Oracle decided they wanted to license it and make money off of it, despite it having an open source history and always being free and to use. And the licensing's not even outrageous, but just the fact that they want to do that upset a lot of people out there. So there was a split, and now there's an open source version of Java, the Open JDK, that's maintained by the community, and then Oracle has its version that it maintains and licenses. As a student, we could use the licensed version for free, but because I dislike Oracle doing that, we're not going to do that. We're going to use the Open JDK, and I'll show you how to do that. So you can actually write your Java software and sell it if you want. I don't think we're actually going to do anything that interesting that you'd sell, but it'll at least, in the future if you want to. So there's a link for this. You go to the latest version, JDK 16 here. This early access is not officially released. Don't use that yet. So this is like the latest actual version out there. Go to 16. Again, Linux, Mac, Windows, whatever you want. It's just a zip that you download. And then you'll extract that zip file, and it'll have all of the Java development kit. So that's all the tools you need to write Java software. Why is that super? Oh, I'm on the guest network here. I have to figure out how to not get on the guest network later. I've not gotten to, so another cool thing we have, almost there, is a supplemental instruction through the Academic Support Center. We've got an amazing group tutor for this section and the morning section, Mr. Tim Vorse. He's phenomenal. So he will run group tutoring sessions Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1 to 2 in the afternoon. So you can just drop on in, ask any questions, talk about what's going on in class, even talk about projects. I'm fine with you folks talking about homework. He's not going to solve them for you, obviously, but you can ask questions about it, and he can give you some good pointers there, get you moving, and meet with other students as well, kind of talk amongst yourselves. It's awesome. So I'll get to that in a minute, but Tim asked online if I have coffee in my office, and I don't yet because I don't have a key. I started last year and never needed to come, so I didn't ask for keys. And then things got crazy with like fall registration, and apparently lots of students wanted to take online classes and not in-person classes, so they tried to shift a bunch of classes to online. None of the 1500s though, but they targeted a bunch of other ones that had big wait lists. So our dean was a little busy to get me a key. So now it's just waiting for public safety. I'll get a key eventually. I've got an office over in F building that way, right over there.
BNE is like a key.
It's frowned upon though. That's a frowned upon key. Yep. Later on, we're going to use the OpenJFX. This is the Java FX for graphical user interface applications. Again, there's an open version of it instead of the Oracle version. So we'll get to that when we get there. It's another download you do. I'll walk you through all the steps, and we're going to use Scene Builder It's a tool for building graphical user interfaces that's drag and drop. So we don't have to do it all in code, which is phenomenal. I'm all about doing things the easy way. So like all good developers, I'm lazy. And I mean that in the nicest sense, in that I don't want to do more work than I need to if there's a faster way, right? So that sort of laziness tends to make developers write really cool tools for other developers. And all of our tools have all sorts of shortcuts. They're phenomenal. If you don't want to install it all locally, you can use the virtual desktop. This is a little link to the knowledge base article. Pick your operating system. Again, Windows, Mac. There is a web version, but they don't recommend you use it. It's just kind of slow and laggy. If you need to, you can, but hopefully you can download the actual Horizon VMware client, connect into the virtual desktop. And what's supposed to happen is these computers will also connect to the virtual desktop. So it's the same experience you're getting here on these computers as we sort of phase out of using big desktops in all the rooms, and we run everything on virtual desktops. So you'll connect into the same ones. It just walks you through all of it. You connect to apps.oaklandcc.edu. You'll log in. You'll pull up not the test one. You'll log into the CIS student one. And that will have all of the CIS software that we need preloaded, ready to go for you. So that's the option if you don't want to install it all. Either way is perfectly fine. And if you want to bring in a personal laptop, go for it. You're welcome to work on that in class. Bringing in a personal desktop is a little bit harder, but you're welcome to haul that in too if you want. As long as it's not a Dell, you probably won't get funny looks. But if it's like the same make and model as one of these, someone's going to look at you funny walking in and out with a computer. Some other course policies on plagiarism and cheating. This is a particular pet peeve of mine. People who cheat will not get degrees if I can help it. It devalues the degree for everyone who has it, and I actually do have the associates in CIS from OCC from years ago. So if you engage in academic dishonesty, you immediately fail the course. There are no second chances. There are no zeros on the assignments. There are no, you just fail. Immediately you get reported to the dean's office, and the dean's office keeps a 3-strike list college-wide for all your courses. And after 3 violations of our academic integrity policy, you'll no longer be welcome to be a student here. We do take this seriously. It's not insanely difficult work, but it's work. You have to put the work in, and if you cheat and then you don't actually know how to do the stuff and you go get a job and you don't know what you're doing, the people who hired you are going to think OCC did a terrible job and not want to hire other OCC graduates. So it devalues the degree for everyone. So it's in your best interest to not help other students cheat either, because it'll just make your degree worth less. Okay? If you're unsure, please ask. Right? I'm happy to look at something and tell you. I know there's a website called Stack Overflow. I know there's all sorts of code out there. Like, I get paid a lot of money as a software engineer to find answers on Stack Overflow. Right? But this is academia, so we're going to cite our source. Right? Like when you write an English paper, it's plagiarism if you present someone else's idea as your own without citation. If you find something online and you cite your source, I'm generally good with it, right? Because you cited your source. And my job is to write assignments that aren't Googleable, right? And sometimes I screw up at that. But generally, you shouldn't be able to Google for a solution unless you go to some stupid website like Chegg, which is awful and terrible, and I hope they go out of business because they let people pay money to cheat. And they're horrible. They have the ability to block all of my stuff from going on Chegg.com, but they'll only do it for a 36-hour window if I tell them it's for a test. Beyond that, they'll say, oh, no, we'll let people post it anyway. So I hate them. I have to do all sorts of paperwork because people use Chegg. They post assignments. They post the answers they get. Half the time, they're not even good answers anyway because they're paying for this crappy tutoring service where people write the answers for you. And then they fail. And then they get mad at me. I didn't think I'd have to tell you not to post the homework on Chegg, but this is new in my syllabuses now. Under no circumstances may Chegg.com be used. Don't post things there. Don't cite sources from there because it's obviously cheating. Okay, so don't even go on Chegg or sites like it, like Course Hero or other nonsense. Just stay off of them, okay? Do your own work. So any use of Chegg or similar websites is considered academic misconduct. You will fail the course. Just please stay off of it, okay? It's really better for everybody. And then a copy paste from the OCC handbook. What it says essentially is that in the judgment of the instructor of the class, which is me, if it's academic dishonesty, it is. Again, if you're not sure, just ask. I know I sound like a real jerk. I'm generally a nice person, so I'm happy to talk with you about it and tell you yes or no, or hey, let's add a little citation here. Okay, sure, you found this way to do this method here. This is how you find a prime number. Great. I don't expect you to come up off the top of your head how you find prime numbers in Java. I know that's out there. Okay, so just cite your source. We're all good. Plagiarism, right? Giving someone else's ideas as yourself, or acquisition of the tests or other academic material, or distribution. This is posting my stuff on Chegg.com. That's distribution of academic material, right? That's a violation of the academic integrity policy. Don't do it, please. Okay? I'm really sorry, but I had to fail 8 people one semester, and it really irritates me because it's a lot of paperwork. I had to fill out all these forms and submit extra documentation and put together a whole packet of everything that goes to my dean, and I had to do it 8 times instead of doing the things I should have been doing. And not only if you are the one doing it, but if you aid and abet that behavior. So if someone says, hey, can I see your project? I just want to see if I did it the same way. Don't give them your project, right? You're aiding their behavior. They're probably just going to copy paste it, right? Even if they promise they're not going to. Don't do it, okay? Is that clear? All right, I'm sorry. It's a big irritation of mine. I'm sorry. I don't like doing the paperwork. I have only one person that I caught cheating. It's possible I won't catch you, but I'm generally decent at it because code you find online does not look like code that first-year college students write. Let's just be honest. So typically it looks really funny. So I still have to do the paperwork for the one person who failed the summer semester. And it irritates me to do it. I don't want to do it right now. So anyway, our student code of conduct, that's a copy paste. How you get your score in the class. This is what everyone seems to care about. We'll have individual projects that make up 35% of your overall score in the class. So the points within the projects only matter within this category. So it's a weighted system. So if a project's worth 100 points and a quiz is worth 10 points, doesn't mean the project's worth 10 times more, right? It's worth the points within that category. So it's 35% of that. And typically as the projects go, they'll increase in points. So the very first project you do is just a couple points. The second project is a couple more points. The next project is a couple more points. The next project is a couple more points. Because as we learn programming, we never get to forget anything. We're going to learn tools and techniques and things, and we're going to build on them and use them in the next assignment, and use them in the next assignment, and use them in the next assignment. Because we're going to use all the skills that we're learning in our projects. So later projects are worth more. We'll have quizzes on every chapter. These are open book, open notes, open internet. This is your incentive to open the book, right? I often find students, usually they'll purchase the book or rent it or whatever they do, but they don't always open it and actually read it. Right? This is your main reference for the course, right? Like everything we're doing is essentially coming out of here. You should open it and read it. Now, I know you probably won't read every single word, and please don't try and memorize everything or anything at all. What you want to do is know where the material is, right? It's a reference for you. So know where this chapter is that talks about strings. Know where this chapter is that talks about classes. Know where this chapter talks about file input and output. Know where to go find it, right? I've never heard of anybody ever in my professional experience being told to do something and not use their resources. That'd be stupid to pay a developer to do something but say, don't look online, don't use books. So I'm not going to ask you to do that either. So everything's open book, open notes, open resources. Know where to go find the answers, right? You don't have to have everything in your head. No one can know it all, but you need to know where to go find it. And don't spend your time Googling things online because it's all coming out of the book or things that I say in class. You shouldn't have to go Google and find all these other sources and sites and things. Like it's coming out of the textbook or my mouth. So do quizzes every chapter. You'll have unlimited time until the due date. You'll have unlimited time. So usually a week. So at the end of the class, I'll post the quiz, and until the next week, it'll be due. So you'll have all week to go in, go out, save, go in, go out, save, and it's only 10 questions per chapter. But that's your incentive to read the book. There should be 10% free points for you right there, right? Everyone should get 100% on every quiz. That's the goal, right? I don't like taking points off on quizzes, right? We'll have one exam, a midterm exam that's worth 15% of your overall score. This one is open book, open notes as well, but this one will be time bound. We'll have a start time and an end time. So you'll have about a 4-hour window once you click start to hit submit, unlike the quizzes. That's just to make sure everyone has the same amount of time. So like if you're really busy during the week and you have other responsibilities and 6 kids like I have, you might not be able to sit for 4 hours straight one time very easily. Usually you could use the same class night, but if that doesn't work well for you, that's fine. So that one will have a time limit on it. That'll be the only timed one. And then the final project is worth a whopping 40% of your overall score. That's designed to be really heavy here, as this is putting all the things together that we've done in class into a final project. And we're going to try and work in pairs on this. You will get a better result working with other people. As much as they like to stereotype programmers and say we're boring, lonely people who like to sit in closets and never talk to people, that's really a terrible way to go about programming. You want to work with people collaboratively so that you get a better result, because two heads are really better than one. We can talk through our design, we can talk about how it's supposed to work, talk about this is my plan to do it, and find problems with it earlier. This program is really an iterative process. You'll write a little bit, you'll try it. You'll write a little bit, you'll try it. You'll write a little bit, and you try it until you get all of the features that you need into your code. So it's a lot more fun to work in teams anyway in the real world. I hope no one ends up as a solo programmer, never talking to other people. That'd be really boring. Much more fun to work in a team. So we'll try and pair up for that. People who want to come in person should probably pair up with people who like to come in person. People who don't want to come in person should probably pair up with people who don't like to come in person, right? And make your schedules work a little better that way. So near the later half of the class, or later third of the class, we'll have time after class for groups to get together, or the pairs to get together and work. So if you're already coming to campus, great. You'll have some time there. If you're planning async or live synchronous, it'll be up to you and your partner to figure out when you can work together. But I figure you're all adults and you can figure that part out. Yeah, so that should make up 100% if I did the math right of your overall score. So in terms of a letter grade, this should be a standard scale across OCC. It should have been another copy paste unless I screwed it up. But you notice you can't even get a D if you don't get this final project in. That's on purpose, right? If you can't finish the final project and complete it, you're not going to pass the class. This is instead of a final exam, this is like your capstone project. I mean, capstone is not even really a good word for it, but this is the big project, putting everything together, demonstrating that you did something. And my goal is everyone gets 100% on it. I would love nothing more than to give 100% for everybody on this project, right? The goal is not for me to give you some really hard thing to do and say, go figure it out yourself, right? I'm happy to help you get unstuck if you get stuck, right? I've got office hours to meet. We can meet other times to work on it. We've got class time to work on it. The goal is you have something. I mean, it's your first semester of programming, probably for most of you. So it's not going to be anything amazing, but it'll be a product that you can have that you can be sort of proud of. Like, hey, look, we did this thing that I've got at the end of the semester to show off. Much more interesting than a final exam. Right? For the N grade, if you don't turn anything in the first 3 weeks, you'll get an N grade. You're all here. I'm assuming you'll turn stuff in. Shouldn't be a problem, but I'll be in contact with anybody who's about to get one. It has all sorts of issues for financial aid. The college is big on this because we lose money from the feds if people get financial aid, register for classes, and they don't ever take the classes. The feds actually take the money back from us. So they're big on us finding students who are doing that and then working with them to make sure that they don't lose their financial aid. In terms of late work, I don't take it. Right? It's a college level class. Please plan accordingly. All the projects, you'll have at least 2 weeks to do. The final project we'll have a month to work on. And the reason is I go over the solutions in class. So when we have a project, I'm going to go over the answer to it the day it's due in class. So you can see how I go about solving it. Typically, people seem to find that relatively worthwhile to see how I would go about solving the problem. So, I mean, if something comes up, yes, I can give you prior written approval, but you should tell me first. I mean, I get it. If you're in a car crash, sure, we'll talk later. That's okay. But like if something comes up and, oh, you have to go out of town for something and you tell me a couple days in advance, I'm good with that. Right? We can work around it. So just let me know. I'm generally pretty flexible. For FERPA, I don't tell you anything. I just say go look at Desire to Learn when it comes to grades and other information, because you should be the only one who can log in there. It makes life easy. For the Americans with Disabilities Act, if you have some diagnosed disability, please work with the Access Office to give me the official paperwork, and then I'm happy to work with you. Everything's recorded already, so that should be fine for note-taking. Other people sometimes get additional time on tests for reasons. So the midterm, you'll probably need some extended time on that if that affects you. Just make sure you get the paperwork in from Access, and then I can be happy to work with you on that. Our Academic Support Center is amazing. One of the coolest things I think we have at OCC because it's entirely an office dedicated to student support. So they have free tutoring. In addition to Mr. Tim doing the supplemental instruction or the group tutoring sessions, there's free is the wrong word, no additional charge tutoring that you can get individual appointments for. So if you go to the Academic Support Center site and check out the Orchard Ridge schedule, I think we only have, we've got two. So John T is a tutor for 1,500. I've not met John T before. They're available Monday through Thursday and Friday for virtual appointments or in person on Friday? Okay, I'm confused. I thought the whole office was virtual on Friday, but sure. Anyway, they'll tutor for 1,500, and Miss Rika is also amazing. She's tutored before, familiar with her. She tutors for 1,500 as well. So if there's questions you have and want to make individual appointments, the Tuesday, Thursday group sessions don't work, or if you even want above and beyond that, you're welcome to schedule individual appointments through our academic support center. They're here to help. And it's not free because like your tuition and tax dollars pay for it, but it's no additional cost for you to schedule these appointments. They're not going to charge you more to go. Just make sure you keep your appointments. I think if you have like 2 misses in a row, they stop letting you book appointments because it's a waste of everybody's time. So that's out there. They're awesome. They also have all sorts of cool study seminars and like college skill things, because apparently we do a really bad job in high school of teaching college study skills. When you go from high school, like this is the thing you need to read, here's the time to read it, here's the homework, let's do the homework, that sort of thing. And you get to the college level and they say, all right, here's the book, here's some information you need to go learn more on your own. It's a big switch for people. So they got all sorts of really cool study skills seminars, tips and tricks there, which are awesome, because it is a big change. At the college level, honestly, my goal is not to teach you. My goal is to help you learn it. Right? It's an individual learning process. I'm going to give you examples, tips, and tricks. I'm going to answer questions. You've got the book, but it's on you to learn the material. Right? I don't have 5 days a week with you folks, an hour a day to meet. So it's a little different. For D2L, that's our course website here. If there's anything technical related to D2L that's not working, like the page is crashing or something isn't responding, that's the D2L technical help desk. If it's content related, that's all me. Right? They have no idea what I put in my quizzes. So, right, hopefully that part makes sense. For accessibility, minimum skills that you can navigate the web, you can use D2L, basic word processing, presentation creation. There's no official presentation we're doing. You're going to present your project, but you don't need to like stand up in front of class in a suit and tie and talk about it. We're just going to show off your software, show us what it does. And we'll need to do file management, attachments, not so much because we're going to use GitHub, but knowing how to work with the file system and move files around and find paths is really important. So I'll show you all that when we get to GitHub. The technology appropriate use regulations that you all agreed to, which I'm sure you read the entire thing because everybody always does that, basically says don't do stupid things on college property. Right? If you violate the policy and do stupid things, you'll lose access to said college resources. And it's really hard to do classes if you can't get into desiretelearn.com because you've been banned. So please just don't do stupid things, okay? For Netiquette, great. Read it if you want. I'm very informal. You're welcome to just shout at me anytime. No big deal there. Eric is fine. Mr. Charnesky's a big mouthful. Professor Charnesky's even more syllables than that. And like by the time you've said that, you're going to forget what you were asking anyway, because it's just too long to say. So Eric is fine. Just shout at me. Like if you want to raise your hand, great. But a lot of times I'm looking at my computer and I might not see it. So just shout. Because if you're not sure about something and you have a question, someone else has the same question. I can guarantee it. Just online, don't be a jerk to people online, please. Right, so the Discord server, I haven't had any problems yet. Crossing my fingers there. Haven't had to ban anybody, but most people are relatively civil. You guys have been a good group. For public safety, we do have their badged police officers here at the campus and all the college campuses. They're fantastic. If you need anything, any assistance through them, they're happy to help. They have their own website. And one of the cool things they do, as it starts to get darker out, because it's a hike across campus into the parking lots, they are more than happy to escort you to your vehicle if you'd like a police escort. They do it all the time. Right? I wouldn't say enjoy it, but like that's one of the things that they do, and they recognize this is a service they provide, so they're happy to do that. You can check out their website. We can call from any of the phones and ask for an escort. And years ago, back when this was a parking lot, none of the lights worked because they were redoing it. They're like always doing something. I don't know. But like I didn't like going out in the dark, and I'm a big 6'2" guy who weighs a lot. But it just made me uncomfortable in the dark like that. So they're happy to give you escorts. All right, for me, if you read on ratemyprofessor.com, I was terrible at this over the pandemic because I hate the pandemic and it was awful. And it was rough at home. And I'm hoping now that we're back into somewhat more of a reasonable schedule and things like that, it won't be so bad. So typically things within a week of the due date will get graded. If you turn it in early, I wait until everything's in so I can grade them all at once and say, okay, if everyone did bad at this one part here, maybe that was my fault for that part, if everyone struggled on it. So I grade them all at once. So within a week of when they're due, typically they'll be returned. If I'm running behind, I'll let you know. The goal is to not let that happen. We'll see. It should be easier now that I'm here. We'll see. And for communications, email, text messages, Discord messages, phone calls, within 24 hours or less. If I don't get back to you, please, bother me again, I might have lost it in the pile. Like I might have just dismissed the notification on my phone and then meant to come back to you and forgot. So please feel free to pester me again. But it all goes to my phone here, and it's always in my pocket unless my son's watching YouTube on it. So I always have it with me or close to me. So generally, I'll get back to you really quick. Okay, and then the course schedule. We're almost there, folks. I'm sorry. I hate reading to you, but hopefully set some expectations. Hey, all right, we got a couple people in chat here. Thanks for coming on by in Twitch chat. That's really cool. I gotta remember to look over this way for that. I'll figure out a good way to do this. Yep, so course introduction and chapter 1, introduction to Java tonight, along with project 0. So project 0 is like our little starter project, making sure all the tools work for you, that you can write your very first program, you can get it into GitHub, and I'll show you how to, essentially I'll do it up front and you can just follow along. And that's your very first project done. So it's not worth a lot of points, but that makes sure everyone has all the software up and running. I've had times before by the time project 1 is due in week 4, they're like, oh, nothing works for me. I couldn't get Netbeans to install. And it's 4 weeks into class, and I just scratch my head really confused. So project 0, this is the only one that's due within a week. So it's due next week before class starts to make sure that you can actually do all the things we need to do in class. Other than that, everything is 2 weeks. So project 1 has 2 weeks, project 2 has 2 weeks, project 3 has 2 weeks, project 4 has 2 weeks, and then the final project is the last month because that one's bigger. So that's the typical flow for assignments. And then we go essentially 1 chapter a night. We hit 11 and just a little bit of 12 to talk about the array lists portion of chapter 12 when we talk about arrays. So 1 chapter a week, 1 chapter quiz a week. Right, so after we talk about the chapter, we'll have the quiz. Please read the book. That's your incentive to do so. So we do our introduction to Java. We write our first Java applications. We work with primitive data types, control statements, methods, handling exceptions, validating data. This handle exceptions is misleading because we'll actually do exceptions later. This is like how to avoid problems, essentially. Defining and using classes. This is when we start the object-oriented portion of things. So Java is an object-oriented language. Probably doesn't mean a whole lot right now, but that's okay. It differentiates it from older languages like BASIC and C that I'm really old now, and none of you know what that is. It's okay. The first language I programmed in was BASIC. I'm not even that old. Thank you. Thank you.
I used C like
Okay.
well, I mean, for one class. So
Okay, so a couple people are familiar. Thank you. You're making me feel better. Making me feel better. Uh-oh. Snake.
over a period of time.
Oh. Our friend Snakeblood says Windows wouldn't install. He was a student of mine a while ago, and he keeps subscribing to the channel to donate to the Student Scholarship Fund over at the University of Michigan Dearborn. So thank you so much, Snakeblood. Yeah, and use your handles on Twitch. You don't have to use your real names, I think I mentioned. And it's more fun anyway, because people come up with appropriate handles, because Twitch will ban you anyway if you're inappropriate. I'm not happy to do that and have people hang out. So we'll talk about classes, and then again, we touch briefly on inheritance. This will be a little bit lighter that week, because there's a lot to the topic, but we cover it in depth in the next course if you're continuing on in software engineering. If you're just taking 1500 for the systems analysis program, you don't take the next course, but that's okay. We'll do enough so that the Java FX stuff makes sense. We'll talk about arrays and collections, working with file input and output, working with actual exceptions and handling them so our program doesn't crash and piss people off. I don't know about you, like nothing seems to upset me more than when my phone or a program on my computer crashes. Maybe because I'm a developer, like I know it shouldn't do that. It just seems to, my frustration level just increases really high when something crashes because we should do better.
Or it straight up freezes. Like
Yep. Yep. And then we'll get started with Java FX. Before Thanksgiving, we'll have the entire week of Thanksgiving off, which is awesome, instead of just the Wednesday, Thursday. I think that's pretty cool. I hope we keep that schedule next year and the year after and the year after forever. So we'll start that. We'll talk about the final project. You don't have to do anything over Thanksgiving break, right? So we still have a couple other weeks to do it, but maybe you think about it a little bit because really we're a Tuesday class. So like you're probably not doing much for Thanksgiving on a Tuesday, but up to you. And then the book only has 1 chapter on Java FX, so we'll spend additional time the week after we get back. I think just the PDF is wrong. I probably didn't format it like that to have a trailing L because that looks stupid, but maybe I did. We'll talk more about Java FX. And then 12.7 is totally set aside. I have no other plans to stand up here and talk in front of you, just for your groups to meet. So hopefully you can all come in person and meet and work together, or if you want to meet virtually, figure that out, find a coffee house near you, whatever works best for you folks, for you and your partner, right? Because we're going to pair. More than a pair starts to get hard anyway with scheduling for college courses, unless we have lots of class time for it. And the more Java FX will have time after class as well. It probably won't go more than hour and a half, 2 hours. So we'll have half a class or so to work on that as well. All the 12/7, and then on the 14th, you folks get a chance to talk. I'll sit and shut up, and you all get to show off your final project, individually or pairs. If you want to join, come in person, show it up, great. If you want to join remotely, I can fire up a Zoom room that's private because you can't present on Twitch like I can. And you can present it. Because I'm trying to also be asynchronous friendly, if you can't make that, I'll do by appointment meetings with pairs. But I'm assuming because you didn't know that was an option, that you already planned to be here every Tuesday. So the summer was a little weird for that, and the winter was a little weird for that, because it was just online, so they didn't know it had to be synchronous. Okay, that's the syllabus. Oh my goodness. I'm already bored. I'm sorry. If you read it beforehand, hopefully it wasn't too terrible. Any questions, thoughts, concerns? This relatively straightforward. All right, so there is a syllabus quiz out here for two things. One, to again encourage people who didn't listen to this to go and read it. Still, like halfway through the one semester, I had someone ask me if they can watch the lecture recordings. And I'm like, it was right there in the syllabus, but okay, life is hard. I get it. It's okay. So there's a syllabus quiz with some questions out there. And then the last question in the syllabus quiz says, you understand the academic integrity policy and that you will fail if you cheat. And that's part of the paperwork I turn into my dean. I say, look, the student agreed to this. All right. A lot of students get upset and they're like, I'm going to go complain to the dean, and they're, you'll have to reverse the thing that you did. It's never happened to me once. The dean has never changed my decision. So just fair warning. Okay. So just a couple questions here. Go take this at your leisure up until next week, 11:59 p.m., just in case you forgot about it. It's 8 questions. You can even take it again if you want, if you don't get them right. But I'm assuming you'll all get them right. It's like, how can you contact me? For using the tools, what do I need to do? I can watch lectures, how? Attending supplemental instructor group sessions. I forgot to mention, or did I tell you, you can get an extra point if you go? No, okay, your eyes lit up when I said extra point. So if you can make the sessions, any one of them is great, or both is sure. You can get an extra point on the weekly quiz. So if you attend a session in that week, you'll get an extra point on that weekly quiz of extra credit. If you can't make the group sessions, I'll also let you get a point if you book individual sessions with the tutors. Or if you can't make one of those, if you go to one of the ASC study skill seminars, you're welcome to get an extra point for that too. Right? Basically, anything that ASC offers, I'll give you an extra point on your quiz for doing. But just one point per quiz. So like you can't triple dip in a week or something like that. But that way, if you miss one of those questions, great, you got a little buffer there, or it can bump up your overall quiz score to get a little bonus there. Worksman after the due date, receive no credit. Here's the link to this when to meet. I'll also post that. So for my office hours, you go in here, put your name in, and then you're going to go and drag and drop on here what hours are good for you, and I'm going to find the time with the most people here. So this is just a generic Monday through Friday. I'll do my best. Obviously, if I'm in class or doing something, I'm not available. So if you want to look for the hours that I overlap, great. If that's too much work for you, that's fine. Just throw in what works for you, and I'm going to ignore it anyway if I'm in the middle of class. But last semester, I actually did have quite a few meetings between 10 and 11 p.m. Because a lot of people were up late and they wanted to meet after class, and that was great. I'm happy to do that and schedule office hours if that's convenient for you. Not before 8 in the morning if I can help it. I'm not a morning person. I got into computers specifically, so I didn't have to be a morning person. And I'm usually up super late. So I'm going to take a minute, fill that out, and let me know when that works for you. But during my office hours, you can book a 15 to 30 minute block of time. I'll hold that for you for us to meet, talk about whatever you want. I'll be at my computer. So if I'm not in the middle of a meeting, you should expect a really quick response from me because I'm there sitting at my computer waiting to talk with people. I like chatting about just general technology, anything interesting. You're always welcome to just chat as well if you want to chat, or all the above, right? All those are fine for office hours. College courses, if you haven't heard, you should plan for 2 hours of work outside of class for every hour in class. So this is a 4-credit class, so that means we should expect to spend about 4 hours a week in class working on stuff. And again, some of that's lab-based, so like if you want to practice it later at home, the expectation is if you only sit here for 2 hours and you go home, you're still going to practice for those other 2 hours, in addition to 2 hours outside of class for every hour in class. So on top of that, 8 hours worth of reading and quizzes and assignments and other stuff a week. It's a large commitment. That's why they say 12 credits is a full-time load at college, because that works out to 36 hours, right? 12 in class plus 24 other class-related stuff. So just think about that. Tell me what days and times you plan to set aside for it. If you actually like book that into your schedule, you'll be much more successful, rather than, oh yeah, I'll do it whenever, because whenever never happens, right? There's always Skyrim or, okay, that's how old I am. I still have not beaten it. It gets stuck on all the side quests, but they're releasing it again for like the 5th time now, right? I'm really excited for the new release.
Did they improve the water again?
You can fish, right? I think you can fish.
Oh my god.
I'm super excited for that.
It's not an RPG if you can't fish.
Well, yeah, that's that.
So yeah, I'm a giant nerd. I love all sorts of games. Play video games whenever I get a free chance. Trying to get my kids into, they're more into board games and Fortnite, and I'm terrible at Fortnite. I used to be decent at first-person shooters, and now I'm just slow.
I tried grabbing from Steam. It's early access right now, but it's basically Honey, I Shrunk the Kids meets survival crafting game.
Oh, that would be fun. Is Grounded
And
on
it's
Steam? Okay,
multiplayer.
very cool.
Wait,
Yeah.
so are you the one that's shrunk?
Yeah,
Oh, that sounds horrible.
actually, I picked up a game. There's
Oh, okay, that's not bad.
There's an acquaintance I know online who went through a degree program that's like focused on game design, and their like senior college project was putting together a game. And they went and asked the school, they're like, hey, I actually want to publish this. Can I have the rights to it? And after fighting with the school for a while, they got the rights to publish it. They spent another year with their team, and they have a Steam game out now. So I picked that one up. It's a silly little RPG, but that's a lot of fun too. And it's just really cool to see, like, this was essentially a student project with, more work to it, but, it started as that. And that was really cool. And that's one of the things we do over at U of M Dearborn. There's a game design program with a guy out there, Dr. Maxim, who's fantastic. He's a nice guy. So he's big into that. And I would teach some of the classes for him in that program. Yeah, bless you. So just like, this is a free point. Just tell me when you plan to do it. Right. So this is just getting into that mindset. Let's set some time aside to do the things we need to do and plan accordingly. And some weeks are easier, right? They might not take the whole time. Some weeks are harder. They might take more time. And it's just really going to kind of depend. And then number 8, you agree to the academic integrities policy. You've read and understand the policy on plagiarism and cheating. Just a copy paste out of the syllabus. So I have to send this to the dean. I have to send my syllabus to the dean. I have to send your work to the dean. I have to find the work on chegg.com, send it to the dean. It's just a bunch of nonsense. Please don't do it. I've failed more than 30 students over the last bunch of years, and every time it just irritates me. Okay, so let's just not. Okay, that's the syllabus quiz. Free points for you there in the quizzes. Skyrim is the game of all games. If you don't get lost in the side quest you didn't play, that's exactly. I'm still side questing. I've almost finished all the side quests that I could find. I'm like super excited. Someone did a 100% run on it online. They didn't like video the whole thing, but they like counted up. I think it was, what did they say, like 270 hours for a 100% that they had to do. Had to. I mean,
Someone wrote all the books and stuff in there.
oh yeah, collecting all the books. You have to have them organized in your library, alphabetically sorted.
Sure.
All right, so that's it for the syllabus. For a quick course introduction. Generally, I'm a nice person. I'm sorry I'm coming off like a big jerk for this cheating thing. It's really a pet peeve of mine. So we've been sitting here for a while. I'd like to try and take a break every 10 minutes. No, every hour or so. I'd like a break every 10 minutes, but no, so at least every hour or so, if not sooner. So if you're just getting tired and bored, just shout at me that we need a break. And like, if one person wants a break, we can take a break, essentially. If everyone else groans or like, no, let's just keep going, then you can just go wander off and watch the recording later. So you're welcome to get up and walk out anytime if you got to do stuff. So why don't we take 10 minutes and then we'll come back. I'm going to go see if I can find some coffee or some caffeine. I've got 6 kids at home. One of them still gets up for high school bell times, and that's awful. Like, they know high schoolers do terrible getting up at 6 in the morning, yet we keep doing it to ourselves. That's just awful. I'd like to sleep in. Anyway, so I'm relatively busy outside of that. So if I don't answer my phone, when you leave me a message, Just tell me what time is okay to call back. If you are free at 11 p.m., I'm happy to call you back at 11 p.m. because I'm usually awake till 1, 2, 3 in the morning. That's just my schedule. If you don't want to call back that late, please tell me. Right? I called someone once at like 10 p.m. and they're like, I have to work at 6 in the morning. Why are you calling me? I'm returning your voicemail like you asked me to. So just tell me when, or text, or find me on Discord or email. That should all work. And we can go from there. All right, so I'm going to take a couple minutes, put a little break screen on here. Yeah, the breaks are all in the video. I don't bother pausing the video because it just has too many different cuts in there. We'll do like 7:05 p.m. and then we'll come back. Alrighty. So we're going to try writing our first program first, and then we'll look at what the chapter says about Java, because I think it's a little more interesting to actually try something first. You've all been sitting there really bored for a while, so we'll try it first. We'll do it again after, and I'll show you how to use the GitHub portion of things. So doing it more than once is going to be good. I know it'll feel a little repetitive, but you'll want to get into the habit of it. So if you go to Start, you should have Netbeans installed on your virtual desktop there. Mine doesn't want to show the icon for some reason, but it's a funny little circle. You should have Apache Netbeans, maybe version 12.3. I don't know if that is 12.4. That should be fine. In your Start menu. So we're going to use Netbeans to write our Java code. It's a great development environment. Maybe great's a stretch, but it's a free development environment that does a lot of things for us. Does a lot of the hard work for us. All right, and it is a little slow to load, unfortunately. And also OBS makes my computer a little slow, but should load up in a minute, and we'll use this to do our first Java program.
Sorry.
Is that one not working?
It started acting up.
Oh.
Logged me out.
Oh no!
Yeah, I mentioned that 3 times already.
Oh really?
Yeah,
From the virtual desktop?
it's on there. Like, it logged me out. I
Oh.
think it says other user right now. Yeah.
If you have to use it, I'll go back in.
Oh, that's weird. Maybe we'll just turn it off and on again.
Yeah, you know.
Push all the power.
Jump share.
My sister told me to go on. I was thinking of I'm going to use it.
Oh, you can't see my screen. Still on the other one. This is why that one didn't look right. There's Netbeans. You couldn't see that thing I was saying. This is their icon for it. This little hexagon. That's the Netbeans icon.
Doesn't look like a bean.
Nope, not at all. That's a genetically modified bean here.
Very genetic.
They can do a lot of things with science now.
Yeah.
All right. We're getting there. Yeah, Mr. One Hamill, or One Mr. Hamill, you can use Visual Studio Code if you know how to use it. Some people like it. It doesn't integrate as well with Java FX, but it's not the end of the world. We just use Netbeans because that's what's installed here. And the smart people before me have been using Netbeans. That's what Dr. Ball uses. So I said, sure, we'll make it work.
The Netbeans I have on my computer says 12.3.
That should be fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So they come out with new versions all the time. So first, yeah, it should be in there in the start menu. So the first most important thing is dark mode. So you go to tools and options. And this way we don't blind ourselves. And under fonts and colors, you can change from the regular super bright one to Norway Today should give you the nice dark mode. No. So the Darkula add-on is nice, but this one's built in now in these later versions. So that ought to get you the dark mode for you there. What?
Norway Today.
Isn't it Norway Today? Did I read it wrong? Norway Today? Yeah, I think it says Norway. Sometimes I read things wrong. It's like when you read a book and you pronounce the main character's name wrong, and then someone else says their name the right way. You're just all embarrassed. Happens all the time to me. And I've got my font up real big, so if it's too small, let me know, but I think it looked halfway decent. This is kind of small right now, but when I actually have Java code up here, it'll be a little bigger. So after you get that, we're going to go to File and New Project. And so everything we do is going to be a Java project. So a project is just a way of collecting everything into one package for us. You're welcome to use the same one, but it tends to get really cluttered. So I tend to do a new project for everything. So at least every week we'll have a new project, sometimes more than one per week, just to keep things in one nice small little package. So you're going to find Java with Ant is going to be the easiest one for us to use. Maven and Gradle are great tools, but they're a little finicky, don't tend to work quite as nicely. So Ant is great for us. It'll do all the things we need it to do. So Java with Ant, Java application. Yeah, Netbeans will work on Mac, Zamir. Guzondo, if it can't find the JDK, there's a command you can run when you install it. Well, we can do a screen share after. I can show you how to install Netbeans if it's having any trouble. We want the Java within Java application, and the next page here is important. So the first thing is the name. So the name is going to make a folder with that name, and everything will go inside of it. So we'll just call this one Hello World, because somebody way long ago decided when they teach you how to program, the very first thing you should do is make the computer say Hello World. So we're going to honor that tradition. We'll call it Hello World. You can put it anywhere you want for now. Once we talk about GitHub after, right, this is just our first practice round, we'll throw this one away, so it doesn't matter where it goes. Just kind of keep an eye, this is where you tell it where to put it. So for now, I'm going to put it on my desktop. And that's fine. So it's saying, hey, I'm going to make a folder called Hello World on your desktop. Everything else should be fine. You don't want to check this box, use the dedicated folder, and you want to have this one checked, create the main class, because this does a lot of the work for us. Right? And we say finish, and it's going to go make the new project and make a bunch of stuff. I should slide this over. Maybe I'll see chat better if it's over here. We'll try that. I've got chat on the left. So it should open up. There's 3 tabs over here on the left. There's project, files, and services. Most of the time we want project view. We'll take a look at file view in just a minute. But inside of project view, you can open these. This little arrow here will open it. So you can open Hello World, the project. You'll see source packages. You open up source packages. You'll see Hello World, the package. And a package in Java is nothing more than a folder. So we have a folder named Hello World. And inside of that, we have hello world.java. This is the place where code gets written. This is where all the magic happens. So .java files are where we humans write Java code that then the computer will go and turn into Java bytecode, which will then go run on your machines. The fine folks at Oracle, or Java, now owned by Oracle, spend lots of time and effort making sure that the Java virtual machine runs on all sorts of platforms. And they like to advertise Java runs on billions of devices around the world. They run on Windows, they run on Mac, they run on Linux, they run on all sorts of IoT devices. So if you can write Java code, you can run it anywhere there, which is really cool. So the main idea behind it was portability. Previous options, you had to do something that only worked in Mac land, or something that only worked in Linux, or something that only worked on a specific Windows build. You had all sorts of issues. So Java was novel in that it was very portable. For me, my stuff is in blue. It might be in green for you. This like slash and stars, you can ignore all that for now. We'll talk about what that means in a minute. We just want to get some working code first, and then we'll come back and look at it. You'll see it says package hello world, public class hello world. So you'll see that name shows up a bunch of times, and that's fine. We like all that. Now for us, all the magic's going to happen inside of this public static void main parentheses string square braces args end parenthesis open curly brace. Holy cow. Java is big on syntax, or the rules of how you write code that it can understand. So all of this has to be here for Java to understand it. Don't worry, we'll talk about what it all means later, a couple chapters down the road. For now, we're going to work inside this set of curly braces. And Netbeans is really nice. If I click it like next to this curly brace, you see it highlights it, and you'll see this is an opening curly brace, and you'll see there's a matching ending curly brace down here. So everything between those two curly braces will say belongs to or is in scope of this main method here. Okay, so everything we're going to do is inside of main to start. So it has this little helper note here, / to do code application logic here. Your code goes here. We're going to take out that line because we don't need it. So including those 2 slashes, we can just delete it because we don't need it. And then we're going to do some magic. We're going to have the command to make Java put something out at what we'll call the console. So if you open up like command prompt or PowerShell or terminal in Mac, that's the console essentially. So we're going to say system with a capital S. Java is case sensitive, so it's real obnoxious. System dot out for out dot print ln for line. System dot out dot print ln, and then a set of parentheses. Now Netbeans is helpful. When you start an open parenthesis, it will put in the close parenthesis for you. Right? It tries to be helpful because it's written by developers who are lazy, and every time you start one, you're probably going to end one. So they do that part for you. We get system.out.println. You shouldn't have anything red. If there's something red, like if you had system in lowercase, it's going to be red and upset with you. And if you hover over it, it'll tell you, this little message is really hard to see, but it says package system does not exist. It doesn't know what system is with a lowercase s, because Java's case sensitive. If I misspelled out, right, OIT or something, it'll have a red line. Cannot find symbol, variable OIT, location class system. It doesn't know what an OIT is, again, because we typoed it, it's OUT for out. Same with println. If you did print IN instead of print line, like a lot of people do, it says cannot find symbol. So you're going to hate that cannot find symbol message. But it's helpful. So if we cannot find symbol, we type out something, right? It doesn't recognize what it is. So if you get rid of all the red, you're good. Inside the set of parentheses now, we're going to put in some quotes. Not the apostrophes, but quotes, right? So if you start one, it's going to end one for you, right? You put in one and it puts in the ending one. Everything we want to show on the screen goes inside the quotes here. We just give it a bunch of text, anything we want it to say. And we should probably have it say hello world, because that's what everyone does for their very first program. So inside the quotes, we get hello world, and the quote, and the parenthesis, and then there's this lovely semicolon. So in Java, not every line of code, but every command or every statement in Java has a semicolon. So that's how Java knows, okay, you want me to do something, do this line, semicolon. So system.out.println, lowercase l, hello world, and then you can hit this green play button or run button up at the top. And it should, after it thinks a minute here, it should run. Let's give it a shot. And this output window, kind of down below here, this is where we're going to see the output of our program running. So I'm running it, and then this green stuff, build successful, is just telling me, yeah, it worked. And I'll see my output, I'll see hello world. Life is good. I was able to get hello world out. So it's our very first Java program. Not interesting at all, but again, everyone has to start with this. We okay so far? Cool. All right, so if you want to print more than just hello world, I'm a big fan of copy paste, or there's other shortcuts built in. Again, because developers are lazy, and we have all sorts of shortcuts. If you type in SOUT for system out, and then you hit tab, it will fill in the rest for you and say, oh, system.out.println, here's a set of quotes for you. That's SOUT and then tab will autocomplete that for you. Because it's quite helpful. This is relatively common for writing programs. So they put in a nice little shortcut for us. And we can put in all sorts of things. So we can say like, hi there, computer. I'm Eric. And then the computer will say, hi, Eric, how are you today? And then I can say, well, I'm great. Happy Tuesday. And again, run. And anything we tell it here, it should spit out, because the computer is stupid and it does exactly what we tell it to do. Okay, so we get our little fake conversation here. And again, anything you want to put in here is great. Now, the problem is, if you want to put a quote in here, right, like if I wanted to like say that I'm saying this thing, it's not going to work very well with me. It's going to be really unhappy, and I get all these red lines. So putting quotes in is a little trickier. That's okay, we'll get to that. So like, if you try to put a quote mark in, it's going to be upset, but apostrophes are fine. We'll look at how we can fix that in just a little bit. We just want to get our first program up and running. All right? So now what's really cool, you can see in file view what's happening behind the scenes. So we see the Hello World Java file, because that's the only thing we really care about for this project. Behind the scenes in the file view, there's a Hello World folder. And if I look at my desktop, I have a Hello World folder. There's a bunch of things in that. So you can open it in the File Explorer, or you can look at it in this file view in Netbeans. Anything's fine here. There's a build folder. Build gets generated when we run our project. So everything inside of build, Netbeans generates for us. We don't have to do anything here. It's all automatic. But what it does behind the scenes, there's a bunch of other stuff in here, but deep down inside, there's a helloworld.class file. This class file is actually the compiled Java bytecode. This is what the Java virtual machine goes and runs to run our Java program. So I could take this class file to any system with a Java virtual machine or a Java runtime environment, and it would run for me. And I could get this spit out on the console somewhere, anywhere, which is pretty cool. And it's nice that Java is nice and portable like that. But that's the compiled portion of Java. So all Java compilers will compile down to class code. And this is not human readable. If you open it up, it looks like gibberish, right? Because it's understandable by Java, the Java virtual machine. Everything in NB project is Netbeans projects, Netbeans project files, so that Netbeans knows how to open it and view it as a project. A bunch of stuff in here, we don't really care. Right? It's all happens behind the scenes. We don't have to worry about it. There's a source folder. This SRC folder is where all the code goes. So inside a source, we'll see there's a folder called Hello World. Remember, we have a package named Hello World, a package in Java. This package here is just a folder. It means it's in a folder called Hello World. Inside of that, we'll see the hello world.java file again. And then there's a build and manifest, again, other NetBeans things specific so we can run our program. All that happens behind the scenes for us. So what we usually care about is just the hello world Java. That's what we're going to do. And each project we do will have essentially a single file until we get to writing our own classes. And then we'll start looking at multiple files. But everything happens in the single Java file for now. And all of that will happen inside of main until we learn otherwise. So all this other stuff you can just ignore. No big deal. It needs to be there, and it types it all for you. So life is good. And we can have our silly little conversation with the computer. Okay? Cool. So after the next break, we'll practice the GitHub stuff. So if I forget to mention it, you'll need to make an account on github.com. It's public. Use any username you want. It tends to be not an expectation, but a common practice in the industry if you're applying for a software job to show people your GitHub, because you can put all sorts of stuff out there, things that you've worked on, anything open source that you've contributed to, that sort of thing. You can put out any interesting projects that you wrote out on GitHub. So don't do like Fuzzy Pants 29 for your username. Like, it doesn't have to be your real name, but something that's not Fuzzy Pants is probably better. So make a github.com account. It's free. You don't have to pay for anything. And I'll get you set up and we'll go through the process of making projects and getting them put on github.com through our OCC repo or organization. It'll work out pretty well. And I'll show you all about GitHub. It's a fantastic tool. I'm a huge fan of it. And I love that they give it away for free. So you can sign up for the student pack if you want to get a bunch of extra free stuff. But you don't have to. Like, everything you need to do, we can already do. But if you want to sign up for all the free goodies, you can sign up for that through them. So they're pretty friendly to students, especially now that Microsoft owns them. They're even better. Sorry, I'm playing with my laptop here. It's moving me around. I mean, it doesn't have to be a professional username, Mr. Hamill, but something that's not silly.
And definitely not inappropriate.
Yeah, GitHub would be upset with that, for sure. It's probably in one of the terms that you agree to that no one ever reads, but sure. Yeah, it might be an urban legend, but I feel like someone actually went to court and their lawyer argued that no one actually reads these 90-page terms of agreements and you can't expect to hold them to it, and they won. It might just be an urban legend. I want it to be true really bad, but those terms and conditions are silly. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about just introduction to Java, stuff from the text, super interesting stuff. Now, I'm not a big fan of PowerPoint because if there are words on the screen, you folks start reading them. And as much as we like to imagine that we're good at multitasking, people suck at multitasking. So if you're reading something, you're not listening. That's generally how that works, right? My wife reminds me all the time I'm not a good multitasker. So I'm very familiar with trying to do two things at once and sucking at it. So I put them all out there. Actually, did you folks get them yet? Maybe it was just the Monday class, but I put them out there. Let me see. No, I forgot to add them. Let me go upload those for you here. So you're welcome to use those yourself. Essentially a Cliff Notes version of the chapter. It's a good way to make sure you're going through sort of all that information. So this is the textbook slides. And we drop those out there. I've got all that in Murrock. Here we go. So I'll put them out here for you, but I'm not going to put a PowerPoint up on the screen and read it to you, because I find that tends to be really boring. Most of the time when I'm showing you Java stuff, I'll be in Netbeans, and we'll actually be writing code. If you're the kind of person who likes to follow along letter by letter, I type fast and I talk fast, and I've been doing it for 20 years. Is that right? No, not quite 20 years. Almost 20 years professionally. So I'll try and slow down and relax and breathe a little bit. And I have caffeine all the time, but you can always follow along after on the video too, if you want to do everything I'm doing exactly, or after the lecture time when it's like the lab work practice time, then we can try it again. But trying to follow along typically doesn't go super well. And the people just seem to get frustrated at me. So just fair warning. All right, so I'll put the slides out here for you folks. Now, if I do too many at once, it puts them out of order and irritates. Okay, they're still out of order. Never mind. I don't know why I can't go number 1 first. Should just name them alphabetically, but it does not. Sorting here is hard. Mr. Hamill said someone put a $50 reward inside of terms of service once, and it only ever got claimed one time. That would be funny. My wife suggested I hide like a little prize bonus thing like that inside of my syllabus to encourage people to actually read it. It's like, nah, that's just too much effort.
With the 1 free Starbucks coffee.
Ooh. I do like my coffee. I used to go to Starbucks all the time, like when I would drive places, and then I haven't really gone anywhere for a year and a half, so I lost all my rewards and all my free perks and things. But there's a coffee shop that a friend of mine from high school started just around the corner from me, which has been awesome. And they do like curbside service, so I can just drive up there and bring out my coffee. It's awesome. Mr. Hamill said one teacher actually did that. If you hand the paper back, they were able to get out of a pop quiz in the terms and conditions. That's awesome. All right, so there's, we're not going through every chapter, but I'll put them all out here anyway, just so they're out there. See, look, these ones almost went in order, except for 11 and 12. I don't really feel like it should be better. It's not hard to alpha sort things. Ay, ay, ay. Let those load. And then, which ones are out of order? 11 and 12. Thankfully, it's drag and drop. So I'm essentially going to go through the material covered in the PowerPoint, but differently. So not really following along, but kind of keeping all the topics on pace here as we go through it. Let's see if we do this. All right, cool. That shouldn't be too bad. Oh, goodness. That looks ugly. All right, we'll make it work. Again, the book is really nice. It follows along with Netbeans well. They had a specific book for Netbeans and a specific book for Eclipse, and then they decided that was kind of silly to maintain both books. So this new 5th edition is just Netbeans, which is nice. All right, a long history of Java no one really cares about. Back in 1996 was Java version 1. Sure. There's a couple different letters that come after Java occasionally. There's a Java SE, a Java EE, and a Java ME. They're ever so slightly different. The EE, the Enterprise Edition, does all sorts of cool web stuff. So if you take the web system development course, we're actually using Java Enterprise version. That's the 2454 course. I do that one as well. The Java Standard, just the standard one, and then ME was micro for smaller environments, but we don't care too much about those. But again, the idea is it's cross-platform. It will work on all sorts of devices. One funny thing is that when Android was started, it used Java. And through the lovely fact of Oracle trying to license out Java and a whole court case around patenting their API and all sorts of issues, Google decided let's not use straight Java anymore. They moved over to a language called Kotlin, which added some improvements and things they thought would be better for doing mobile development. But essentially, it's still Java under the hood, which is pretty cool. So all the Android devices essentially are Java machines, which are pretty fun. I'm an Android person. I don't like Apple, just for reasons. I think they're snobby, and that offends me. But you know, Maybe I'm just wrong, and that's okay. But I try not to do anything on apples if I can help it. Not that letting Google have all my data is really worth it, but I guess that's the only alternative. I used to have a Windows phone, and I loved that thing. I'm a big Windows fanboy. I like Microsoft a lot, but sadly that died. So history of languages. This part is not super interesting. You can read it later yourself too. But prior to these managed runtime languages, everything had to be compiled down and very specific to individual types of computers and instruction sets and things. So the Java is considered a higher level language because it runs in the Java runtime environment that the fine folks at Java and Oracle write to run things. So any computer that's going to run Java code needs to have the Java runtime environment installed on it. That's a pretty ubiquitous install lots of places, but it likes to update itself all the time. So it used to be everywhere. I think we're slowly moving away from that being standard on some builds, but everything can run Java essentially, and it works out nice because it'll run in the Java runtime environment. Older languages, when we started out, didn't do that. Java is an object-oriented language, which means it's designed in a certain way to have certain behaviors. We'll talk more about object-oriented as we get there. But C++, if you've heard of that as a programming language, is the object-oriented version of C. So C is not an object-oriented language. It's much older. If you do go further into software engineering and work more on like embedded devices or embedded systems or like actual interfacing with hardware stuff, C and C++ is going to be a lot more common. But other enterprise software things, web backend services and things done in higher level languages because they're easier for us developers. So Java is really common. C++ is still relatively common because a ton of people learn it. Universities still seem to love C++, even though it's a terrible first language to learn. They make people learn it. I have discussions about that, but no one cares because I'm not a prof at U of M. I'm just a lecturer, so my opinion doesn't count. But you know, people do it and they learn it, and it's okay. But C# is Microsoft's object-oriented language, styled after C, which C# is a lot of fun. We have a C# course, but it never runs because it's not even like an elective in our program here. But C# is a lot of fun. It's a good language. So C#, Java, C++ are all object-oriented languages. Python is object-oriented, but it doesn't have to be written that way. So it kind of depends on who's writing in Python. So it can be, but isn't always. So those are some great languages to learn. And we are going to launch a Python class come summer, which I'm really excited for. It's not part of the program, so hopefully it runs anyway. But we're hoping to get it to transfer a lot of places. If anyone has transfer goals, we're working with universities around here to take that course and transfer it out. Because I teach Python over at U of M Dearborn. So I was like, hey, I could do a Python class here. My dean said that's cool. Object-oriented means it has classes. Essentially, Crow, yeah, that the idea when we work with things as objects, we're working with classes. And we haven't gotten to that yet, but that's the core. One of the core principles of object-oriented programming is we got to have these reusable packages called a class. We're all about reuse because we're lazy. We don't want to have to do the same thing twice. So in Java, everything again is going to be this console-style application. You can run it from the console to start. Later on, we'll get to graphical user interface programs that actually launch and have menus and buttons and things we can click on. But until then, our mouse is useless. Right? It's all going to be console-based to start because the graphical stuff is harder and you need to know all these other things to make any sense of it. It's typically why we go that route. You can also use Java for web applications. Like I mentioned, typically that's the Enterprise Edition. The 2454 course, we do PHP and Java for reasons. I inherited the class. I didn't start it. So we do both languages and learn how to build web applications, and you can do it with Java, which is pretty cool. PHP is fine too, but Java is really fun. And then mobile applications, right? We can write stuff to run on Android. So Java is pretty popular. So we go through our console application. So one of the things we can do, because this is kind of boring here, that we're just pretending to have a conversation here, is we can actually use something from the Java library. So the Java itself has an entire library of things already built in that we can use. So one of those things is called scanner. Now what scanner lets you do is get keyboard input. So I can actually type something here and it'll use what I've typed to do something. So in our code, we're going to add in, I'm going to take out most of this here actually, because we don't need most of it here. And I'm going to add in this scanner. So if you say scanner, now our book here likes to call it SC. I think that's a terrible name for it here. I might just call it scanner. Mr. Gaddis, if you have the old book, called it keyboard. Again, the second word here doesn't matter. It could be gibberish. The important part here is that we're telling Java, I want a scanner. This is something out of the Java library. I want to use a scanner. I'm going to call it, so I'm going to pick the name here. Now, this is called a variable. So I get to pick the name for the variable. As long as it starts with a letter, we're good. Right? We don't need to worry too much. I'll call it SC because that's what the book has, even though I don't like it. We'll say scanner SC, and then we'll use the equal sign. So the equal sign here is called the assignment operator. It's taking something on the right and assigning it to the thing on the left. So it's not the equal sign in math that says this thing equals this thing. It doesn't work like that. So we're going to say scanner SC equals, and we say new. Notice some of these things show up in orange. Anything orange is a reserved word. It has a special meaning in Java. We'll say new scanner. And again, it is case sensitive, so it needs to be uppercase S for scanner. And then a set of parentheses. And inside that set of parentheses, we say system.in. And then we're going to end with a semicolon. It's still going to be red, and that's okay. We'll get to that in a second. We have scanner, our name for it, we'll just call it SC, equals a new scanner given system.in. So system.in is the standard system input. That's our console input. You can do other things with scanner. We'll get there later. Don't worry about it right now. But for now, this is going to let me get things that I type in and use them. So once we've gotten here, there's two things we can do. The message here is it says it can't find symbol. It doesn't know what it is. Now, one of the things Java does, and this is very common in all of our languages, is that even though we have this big, massive library of all these tools, they don't come automatically because that would slow things down. When I write my program and actually build it, if I included that entire massive library of tools, it'd be really big and slow. So it only gives us the tools that we ask for. So what we can do is we can come up to the top here and we can say, hey, I want to use this tool out of the library. I want to import this tool. Now, I don't want to do it by hand. So you'll notice in Netbeans, there's a little light bulb here. It might be kind of hard to see that light bulb, but if you click on the light bulb, it gives you suggestions. Sometimes the light bulb suggestions are terrible. Right? I'll just be honest. Sometimes it has no idea what we were trying to do. And that's more likely our fault than Netbeans, because it's generally pretty helpful. But sometimes we give it something weird and has no idea what to do. But for us, the first option here should say add import for java.util.scanner. That's the option we want. We want to add an import. We want to tell Java, and it adds the line for us, that we want to use the java.util.scanner class in the library. So there's a library called util for utility in the Java library, and scanner is built in. This is a class built in that Java just provides for us that we can use. So if we use this line, it will tell Java when we go to build our program, yes, please give me this small portion of your library. I don't need everything. I just need this small little portion here. And then the red lines should go away. We still get this funny little yellow one here. This is a warning. And again, this is Netbeans trying to be helpful here. If you hover over it, it says variable SC is never read. It says, hey, you wanted this thing, but you never did anything with it. So it's like, hey, dummy, you forgot something. It's a nice little helpful suggestion. A lot of times, as we get bigger and bigger and bigger programs, we're going to have 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 variables here. So it's really helpful to say, oh, I forgot to use this one over here. Right? Sometimes it's helpful. Other times it's just obnoxious. So if you click it, don't do this. Right? It'll just stop warning you if you go to configure that. Generally, it's helpful, because if you have a variable and you're not using it, you probably didn't need that variable, or you typoed something else. So it's just a helpful hint. So this case, the light bulb's not good. Okay, we're not going to use it. So what we can do is we can use this SC now, this is the variable for it, to get some input from the user. Now, the user's not going to know what to type in, though. So maybe we should ask them. So I'm going to do another system out print line, or SOUT and tab, and I'll say, what's your name? So we'll say hello world, we'll make a scanner, we'll print out what's your name, and now I need to get their input. So I ask them for their name, and now I want to go and grab whatever they type in. So I'm going to say, hey Java, I need this thing, it's a type of string. So the first thing you type is the type here in Java. So a string is literally a string of characters. It's a bunch of text in Java. There's a bunch of different types we're going to look at once we get there, different ways of storing data. So string is going to be the most common one we use because when we deal with text, you probably want to deal with more than one letter at a time. It'd be really obnoxious to have a variable for E, a variable for R, a variable for I, a variable for C, and CHARNESKY. It gets super long, right? So just a string can be a bunch of text, a string of characters, if that helps you remember it. So we'll say string, and then we give it a name. What do we want to call this variable? Now, the general rule with variables is the name that you give it should be a helpful hint, a clue for what it does. So I'm going to call it name, right? This is my name. We'll say string name, and we'll say equals, or this is the assignment operator. We say SC, this is the scanner thing we created here, and then you put a dot. Now I get a whole bunch of suggestions. If you don't get all the suggestions, we can go turn them on. So if you're not seeing them, let me know. But hopefully you see a bunch of things after you hit the dot. Okay, no one said no. Okay, so everyone sees it? Cool. So SC and dot, now we get a bunch of options of saying, hey, what do you want to do? And for us, we want to get next line. So as you type, it will refine the suggestion to be the one that matches. And you're welcome to arrow up and down to find the one you want. And then enter or tab should select it for you. I'm partial to tab because tab will autocomplete other things for you as well. Or you can type the whole thing. Again, I'm fond of typing the least possible, right? If I can find shortcuts, I'm going to use them. And then a semicolon, because this will end the command. So this is a single command for Java to say, please do this thing. Here, done. So sc.nextLine will grab the line of text that the user types at the console, and it's going to save whatever they typed for me in this variable called name. So anytime I ever want to use whatever they've typed, I can use this variable called name. It's going to point to it. So what's cool, what happens behind the scenes, that's fine, is you have a bunch of memory in your computer. So memory is your short-term storage. That's your RAM, your random access memory. It only holds information as long as the computer has power. So it's considered volatile. It's not storage like writing a file to disk, but RAM is really fast. So we like RAM, we like our memory. And for some reason, it's all stored in hexadecimal. So you get an X here to represent hexadecimal. Don't worry too much about it. If you get further into computer science things, people love hexadecimal. That drives me nuts. And then you get some number here. So in a 64-bit system, which most computers are nowadays, you'll get a 64 space value. And not too important here, but like 64, I mean, doesn't even have to be the number 64. Like 63, 2, and then hexadecimal is base 16. That means there's 16 options instead of 0 through 9. You get 0 through 9 and then A, B, C, D, E, and F for 16 different options. A is 10, B is 11, C is 12, D is 13, E is 14, F is 15. Okay, sure. So if you see a letter in there, don't worry about it. It's normal. It should be there. It represents a number. So this is a location in memory here. And what Java does, when you ask it to store something, you say, hey, I want to store some piece of information here. It says, okay, great. Here's the location where I'm going to store it. And then whatever I type in, if I type in Eric, it's going to go store that piece of information at this memory address behind the scenes for me. So when I use the word Eric here for my variable, it says, oh, you mean the thing that's at x632f. Yeah, that's what I mean. But I don't have to type all that nonsense. I want to use the variable name Eric, because that's easy. So then what I can say, after that, I can do another system.out.println or sout. Sorry, looking at some of the chat here. Graphical stuff is similar to HTML. Not in Java, no. HTML is something totally different. And then networking and IPv6 is all hex, yes. Yeah, networking is its own little animal. Thankfully, we don't have to deal with that all too often. So I'm going to print again, and I'm going to say, hi there. Now, I want the value of whatever's stored inside of name. So I don't want to say, hi there, name, because that's literally the letter's name, N-A-M-E, right? Because that's inside my quotes. So anything inside the quotes, it'll take whatever's in there and spit it right back out at you. So what I want to do is I want to take hi there, and I want it to then print. So I'm going to use the plus sign here. And this is, you take a string. So this here in quotes is a string, by the way. So this, when I said a string for name, anything inside of quotes is called a string literal. It's literally a string you have in your program. Right? Here's the letters. So you can take one string and another string, stick them together. If you add them together, essentially, it just sticks them together. The technical term is concatenation. You're concatenating one string onto the other. Sure, it's a fun term to throw out at a dinner party. Other than that, people look at you funny. So I'll say hi there, and I want name. Now notice this is in nice yellow here, or whatever color if you didn't go to dark mode, because that's a string literal. It's inside of the quotes. Name here is nice and white. It's outside the quotes. So I can say, and if I just click on it, you'll notice it kind of highlights the name up here. So if you click on a variable, it's going to highlight where else you're using it. If I click on print line, it highlights everywhere else I use print line. So you can quickly see, I'm going to take hi there, I'm going to take whatever they put in at name, and I'm just smash it in there. Stick the two together, and then spit that out using print line. So now if I want to run this, use my little play button here. It says, hello world, what's your name? And it stopped, it's waiting. It's not doing anything. It's waiting for me to click down in here, get my little cursor and type. So I can say fuzzy pants. And it says, hi there, fuzzy pants. Right? Anything they type in here at this line is going to get stuck into name. And Java, somewhere out in memory, so one of the things the Java virtual machine does is it talks to your operating system. Your operating system's job is to make sure programs can run and to give them little bits of time on the processor. You'd think computers do a lot of things all at once. They don't. They just do lots of things really, really, really quickly. So Java will talk to the operating system and say, hey, I need a place to store it. The operating system says, hey, sure, have this location in memory. You can put something there. And the operating system's job is to track all that to make sure you don't put things in bad places. So you can only use the memory it gives you. That's a whole other security issue. So anything we put in there, it'll store a name. And then anytime we use my variable here for name, it'll get whatever it put in there. And if you put in fuzzy pants, it'll spit back out fuzzy pants. And we run it again, and I can actually say Eric Chernesky, and it'll spit back out Eric Chernesky. So every time you run it, whatever they type in here is getting saved in this variable. And anytime I use this variable, it will go and get that value for me out of memory and give it to me. So the book has some other fun stuff, gets to all sorts of other things. We talk about compiling, running code, IDEs. Yeah, so Netbeans is an IDE or an integrated development environment. Its job is to let us write Java code and run it. Do it really quickly, to develop code. There's all sorts of common ones. Eclipse is another big common one. IntelliJ has one called IDEA that's really popular. Android Studio is for doing all sorts of things on Android. That's even slower than Netbeans, if you believe it. I can't stand Android Studio. It's just super, super slow. But it's really cool to like write Android applications and then have your custom application run on your phone. That's kind of exciting. But lots of ones. Some people like Visual Studio Code. It's actually not too hard to make that work. Visual Studio Code is a free tool by Microsoft. Do all sorts of things with it. But Netbeans is really good when we get to Java FX and our graphical programs with that integration. The other ones I haven't tried. So the other thing we can do, because this is our integrated development environment, we can debug our programs. Now, for some really obnoxious history, a long time ago, programs didn't used to run like this. You didn't get to type it on a computer and hit the run button. You had to do this nonsense of putting it onto physical note cards, and they had a bunch of holes in them, and you take them to some big mainframe, and it would like read through them physically and see all the holes, and they would do nonsense. My dad likes to tell me about it, and my eyes just roll in the back of my head because it's boring. But at one point, someone's program didn't work right on their big stack of cards, and it turned out there was an actual bug stuck to one of the cards. So the process of making your program work right is called debugging, removing the bugs. I'm pretty sure that's true. Wikipedia backs me up on it. So, I mean, it's got to be true, right? Because Wikipedia says so.
I'm surprised we post it every year. My dad used to have a couple of those cases in our basement from
Okay.
the old sound system and stuff.
I don't know how people had the patience to do that. Like, they'd have to drop it off and wait an hour or two for the operator to like put it in the queue and actually run it, and then here's your output. They had to be a lot more careful.
Then tell me
Like-
they really did a hide and seek spot.
So I'll be honest, like developers nowadays are a little bit lazy because it's so easy to push out updates to your software. Like, hey, when you click start on your program, it says, oh, hey, there's a new update you need to download from the internet. Let me go fix this thing. That we're not very careful and we put things out with bugs all the time. When you used to have to like send someone a CD or they had to go to a store and buy a CD, you guys aren't that old or that young, right? You know what CDs are? All right, that was supposed to be kind of a joke. You had to be really careful because there was no way to fix a problem unless you sent a new physical CD, which was really expensive to do. So we've gotten kind of lazy as an industry, which is a little bit unfortunate. And just a downside of making things so fast and easy to fix. And then if you're Bethesda, you can just give 50 gig download patches to people all the time, and I don't know what their problem is.
But
Like,
the features of the bug.
patching is not that hard. Okay.
You wanna fall for a mountain?
I saw a picture once. I meant to save it, and I can never find it again. But it was the Bethesda pizza was a whole pizza with a slice taken out of the middle. I thought that one was hilarious. I really got to find that again and put it in the meme channel. So if you have fun memes, please put them in the channel. We all need something to laugh at, otherwise we cry at life. So memes are great. And then I'm the only one posting them, and then I just feel silly being the old guy posting memes. Anyway, so we can get all sorts of input from our user now at the keyboard. And what's cool is that every time this program runs, it can vary. It can be different because I have a variable. It kind of goes together, right? So if I'm doing something based on what the user types in, my program can be more interesting. If all it ever did was say, hello, how are you? It's Tuesday. Hello, how are you? It's Tuesday. Hello, how are you? It's Tuesday. That'd be a really boring, stupid program. Wouldn't really do anything for us. So because we can use the input from users, we can interact with it, we can actually do some interesting stuff. So let's look at debug mode real quick, because debugging, that's where we went off on that tangent. I'm sorry. This is just me normally. I go off on all sorts of tangents for fun. There's the set of line numbers here. If you click on one of those line numbers, let's stop here at 25. For me, it's 25. Yours might be different. Wherever I have this string name and you click on it, it puts a big fat red dot there, or a red square. The other ones are usually circles and dots. A square, and then the whole line gets highlighted red. What this is called is a breakpoint. So when you're using an IDE, when it gets to this line of code, it will break or pause and wait. And we can actually, from there, look at everything that's happening behind the scenes under the hood, and then make the program run line by line by line by line and see what happens. Now, this won't be very interesting because we're not really doing a whole lot, but we want to practice it, because the more you use your debugger, the better you'll get at it, because it's a little bit funky at first. So instead of hitting play, I'm going to come over to, and I have the play with these like line numbers. That's debug mode. We're going to debug the project. And now we get some different windows down here. I have different tabs. So I have the variables tab is where it starts you. So in debug mode, it says, hey, I want to look at the variables. And what you'll see is there's this args variable. Notice we have this thing called args up here. Again, don't worry too much about it, but it's there. So you can inspect and see the contents of the variable. You'll see I have an SC. Its type is scanner. I mean, we don't really care because we're just doing it as part of the Java library. That's fine. So if I wanted to keep going, there's a bunch of buttons now. The most common one, we're going to use this step over. This little step over button is the first arrow button, kind of going like over. That means do the line. Just go for it. Do the line. Step over. So you step line by line by line. So I'm going to step over. And now it's not doing anything. Because what's happening is it's waiting back in the output tab for me to type something in. This sc.nextLine won't do anything until you hit enter. Until the person running the program types something in and hits enter. So I can go type something in here. I'll do Eric. I'll hit enter. Now it comes back. So the green line is the current line waiting to run. So in debug mode, this is what's next. And if I come back over to variables, I can see now I have a variable called name, because that's what I called it, right? This is my name for the variable. I just called it name. And I'll see that it's a type of string. And over here on the right, the value, this is the cool part. I can see the value. I know it's really small. I'm sorry, I can't really zoom this. Hopefully you can see it on yours. So I'll see the value is Eric. I can click in here and I can change it now. So in debug mode, you can change the value of your variables. So I can go back to fuzzy pants if I want. And then when I go to the next line, I say step over again. I come back to output. It says, hi there, fuzzy pants, because we changed the contents of that variable. So in debug mode, you can see the contents and you can change them. It's super powerful. Again, there's not a whole lot happening here. It's not all that interesting. But as our programs start to do arithmetic, we can actually see the result of our arithmetic, and we can see if we have problems. It's pretty easy to make typos. All right, we all right so far? And again, it's not done yet. Right? This green line is at the curly brace. This is that curly brace that ends main. Everything happens inside of main. So we can either keep on stepping and have to click a couple times, or the green button here, continue, says just keep on going until you hit another breakpoint or stop. So I'm going to use continue, and it's just going to go and finish. I can also use the stop button to just stop if I want. So that's the debugger. Again, it's not all that interesting yet, but I want you to know the tool. We're going to practice it. We're going to use it. So I've been talking for about another hour almost. So why don't we take one more break, and then we'll come back, and I want to show you the GitHub stuff and what we need to do for Project Zero. I'll do it up front here. If you want to follow along and have it done, fantastic. If you've had enough sitting here and you're not used to being back in person yet and you want to go home, go for it. You can always watch the recording and do that part after. I'm open to whatever you folks want. Okay? So I'll plan to take another 10-minute break. I'm going to go drink some more Coke, get all caffeinated up. Then we'll come back, we'll do the GitHub thing and Project Zero, and then we'll go from there. All right? All right, let me put this back on break mode. Do like 8:07, I think, 10 minutes from now. Awesome. back to this screen so you can see me. How's that? Whoa, I know, the reception's fun. So interesting. All right, and I'm gonna post Project Zero here. We'll talk about it and show you. Hopefully you had a chance to make the github.com username. You'll need that. If not, it takes like a minute. You can do that real quick. Project Zero. So it's due next week. September already, my goodness. 6 p.m. So before class starts. I'll make a new grade for it. Cool. Did it do it? Yeah, create a link. Yeah. Okay. Sweet. And here's where it wants to default to file submission. I always forget to change it to text. No attaching files, please, in D2L. We don't need to do that with code. All right, and then I try and add a rubric to every assignment so you know exactly how you get your points. And then what I'm going to ask you to do is every time you turn in an assignment, use the rubric and score yourself. Tell me how many points you got on it. I find I do the rubrics, and then some people ask how they did on it. And I say, well, did it do A, B, and C? And I said, oh, I don't know. I get really confused. So use the rubric. This is literally how you get your points. When I go to score it, it pops up the rubric, and I click yes or no, yes or no, yes or no, and you get the points or not. I try and give partial credit if possible. Like, I'm not, you completely bombed it, you get no points. But like, if you got some of it there, sure, you'll get some points. So typically I say it's complete for 1 point, or it's missing for no points.
What if I find it?
I'm sorry?
What if I find it?
Find it's missing. I gotcha. I'm a little slow sometimes. No, I love that. And in Twitch, if you ever hang out online, there's a channel point reward to have me tell a dad joke. So those are my favorite. Like the worse, the better, to make people groan. My kids love them. Definitely love them. They're not sick of them at all. So I have a whole collection of dad jokes I can go through. All right, so this will be program talks to the user and says hi. So essentially just what we did. We talk to the user, we say hi. So we ask them for their name. I guess I should say that. So program asks the user for their name, and the user being whoever's running the program, whoever clicks run. And that's the user of the program. That's their name, and says hi to them by name. And then all code is committed to github.com without using the file upload option. So in GitHub, there's a button that says file upload. Please don't ever touch that. Right? If you're doing file upload, you've done something wrong. It's there, but please don't use it. I wish I could turn it off, but I can't. We want to actually commit that, and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. You want to committed, that's spelled better. And then number 3, the feedback pull request link is submitted. So I'll show you, there's a URL you're going to give me. This is the feedback pull request link. So 1 point for doing the thing, 1 point for doing it the right way, and 1 point for giving me the right thing so I can find it. Okay? That's it, just 3 points. It's easy, like you should be able to get it done before you leave tonight. Thing here, but just make sure that the tools work for you. If you can make them work on the virtual desktop, from here, you can make them work on the virtual desktop from anywhere. Installing them all by yourself at home on your own computer, definitely an option as well. I'm happy to hop on some screen sharing if you're running into any problems. I think one person said they're having problems with Netbeans installing. It's no big deal. We can do a screen share or bring your laptop in. We can get you up and running. So see rubric. So, but what you're going to need, there's a link you need. This is a GitHub Classroom link. And what this does is a bunch of magic behind the scenes for me to make an individual private repository on github.com that you have access to and I have access to. Makes life really good because that's who should be able to see it. I should be able to see your code, and you should be able to see your code on github.com. All right, so we publish this. If you click that link, it will take you to the github.com. I'll just post the link in here, I guess. And it's going to say, hey, do you want to accept this assignment? CIS 1500 Project Zero Fall 2021. You say yes. If it doesn't, you probably need to log in first. You can check this little top button here and make sure you're logged in. You'll say yes to accept the project. I'm going to accept the assignment. It says, okay, it takes a second here, so count to 10, do a little hokey pokey, refresh. And now you have a link. It says, okay, your assignment, your repository has been created. You click that link. It takes you to github.com. This is where all the magic happens. So github.com/Oakland Community College /CIS 1500-project 0-fall 2021-your username. My username is Eric Chinesky. This will be your username here. This URL is unique to you because they make sure only one person has each username on github.com. Whatever username you use will show up here. It's fantastic. Right? Once we can get to here, we're going to be in good shape. So the repository exists. I'll be able to see it. You'll be able to see it. Now you're going to need to install the GitHub desktop client. Now, this one's not pre-installed on the virtual machines, but you can install it. It doesn't need any elevated admin permissions to install, which is perfect. So that is at desktop.github.com. You can go download and install. You'll download it, you'll install it, and then you'll log into it. So that takes just a minute. I'll pause for a second while you folks do that. So install that. It should work just fine on the virtual desktops or the college PCs if it doesn't actually connect to the virtual desktop. And you can also do this at home if you want to install the tools on your home computer. Well, I already have it installed on my laptop, but it's just click and run. It should be pretty quick. It's a small download. Is that going okay? Cool. All right, did we get that far? Is it not going?
I bet part where it's got a list of 3 different things, 4.
The download or?
I'm not really sure.
Oh, so you're here. Now we need to install the tool. So open up a new tab. Go to desktop.github.com.
I don't know if I'm in the right place.
Yep, and then let's go. You should be able to sign in from there.
Am I in the right?
Perfect.
Should I just go down this or?
We'll do a button in a second.
Okay.
Okay, so just refresh. Perfect. Put that link. And then did you install the GitHub? Yeah, perfect. All right. So once that's installed, there's always like 5 different ways to do anything. But I find the easiest way to open your repository is to back on this page that has your repository. There's a big old green button here. You click the green button and you say open with GitHub Desktop. This should work in most browsers. I haven't had it be a problem before. And what it does is it tries to open GitHub, the desktop GitHub client you just installed. And it'll give you a bunch of options here. So it fills everything in. What's important, or what you might want to see, is where it is. This local path is the important part here. GitHub likes to put everything in a folder in your documents folder in a GitHub folder, and then the name of the repository. I'm fond of defaults. If you don't like it in your documents folder in a folder named GitHub, put it anywhere you want. I could care less. It doesn't matter. But that's where it's going to put it by default. And we can always get back to it later, but just know that's where it's going to be by default. So C, users, your username, documents, GitHub, name of the repository. We're going to click the clone button. So GitHub is a distributed source control system. It's a little bit different than some other source control systems. A friendly fellow named Linus Torvald, who is the founder of Linux, decided he could write a better source control tool than common tools at the time, and he did. Git is now the most widely used tool in the industry. GitHub is a provider of Git services. So they make money by selling Git repository services and all the web integration stuff to companies and organizations. We can do it for free, but it should be able to clone, and then it should bring you to this looking page here where you have a current repository. I've got a whole bunch in the list. You're not going to have many. You'll just have the one. So this is the GitHub view of your repository. Now, a Git repository is nothing more than a folder on your computer. And what the Git source control tool does is it's just a glorified file watcher. If something goes in, it tracks it. If something goes out, it tracks it. If something changes, it tracks it. And it's really good at tracking things down to the line level difference of your file. And that doesn't mean a whole lot yet, but we're going to see how it's really cool. So we have this folder here. So two really easy shortcuts. In the repository menu, you have a view on GitHub. It will launch back out to the GitHub page for your project. Each project will have its own repository. You'll have project 0, project 1, project 2, project 3, project 4? I don't think 4. I forget now. I'd have to look at the syllabus again. And then the final project. Each one will get its own repository because we're going to keep just that project in there. So it'll launch back out to the website. If you can see your code on github.com, I'll be able to see it on github.com. If you can't see it on github.com, I can't see it on github.com. So this is your place to check to make sure the code made it to where it needs to go. So right now it's empty. There's nothing there. So that's the first place to look. The other really helpful shortcut is repository, show in Explorer, or on Macland it's like open in Finder or something like that. So show in Explorer opens up your File Explorer window right to that folder. And again, it's in your C, users, documents. Let's see if I can make that a little bigger here. Nope. Hey, where's my slider? There it is. C, users, Eric C, documents, GitHub, name of the repository. It's just a folder. So inside the folder, depending on your Windows settings, you may or may not see a bunch of stuff here. Typically, you want, as working in development, you want to go to View, and you want to go to make sure you have file name extensions and hidden items checked. You want to be able to see them to know that they exist there. If they're not checked, you won't see them, and you won't see the file name extensions, and everything will just look really funny. So make sure they're checked there. You'll see a folder called .git. You'll notice it's kind of grayed out. That's a hidden folder. Don't touch the Git folder. That's where all the magic happens. We should never have to touch this by hand. But this is where Git tracks everything for us. There's a .github folder. This is used for all the cool GitHub Classroom stuff. We don't touch that one either. There's a .gitignore file. This is a special file that Git uses to say, if a file matches something here, don't put it on github.com. Don't add it to the repository. The rule of thumb when we use source control tools is if you can build it, you don't need to add it. So all those class files that get generated, we don't need to add to source control because I can build it by clicking the build button or the run button. It will generate it for me. It's just clutter that doesn't need to happen. And that's going to change every time you change something. You're going to rebuild and it'll be different. And it's just going to be noise in the repository. So we don't need it. And then there's a readme.md, MD for markdown. This is typically empty, but you can add cool looking readme things. So like if you look at your website for it, right now it says Java template. This is just the template for all Java programs. It's empty except for the gitignore. And the GitHub website is really cool. You can actually view all the files here. You'll see anything that ends with .class gets ignored. Anything that ends with .log gets ignored. Anything that ends with jar and war and all these things get ignored. So it's just saying, don't add these things to the repository because it's just noise. We don't need them. All right, so once we have the folder and we know where the folder is, we're going to go back to NetBeans. So I'm going to go to File, New Project. I want Java with Ant, a Java application again. But this time, I'm going to change this project location. Now the location is important. what I want to do is I want to put my project inside of that repository. So I'm going to go to Browse, or you can copy paste the path in if you like. I'm going to go to my user here. I'll find my GitHub folder. Oh, goodness. GitHub Documents. Sorry, it's in my Documents folder. Then I have a GitHub folder. Then I have CIS 1500, Project 0, Fall 20. Again, I've got a ton of these out here, but you'll just have the one. We'll say open. And then I want to give it the name. Again, we'll do Hello World. Sorry, and typically you want to avoid spaces in here in your project names. Java doesn't really like spaces. So try not to use them when you name things. So Hello World is going to say, hey, I'm going to put it inside of your GitHub repository folder. That's where we want it to go, because everything we put inside that folder, Git is going to track for us and watch. And that's what we want it to do. That's its job, is to track all the files that go in here. So we're just doing another Hello World project, putting it in this folder. This is what we're going to do for every project. You're going to make a new project, put it in the project-specific GitHub repository folder, and then we'll be able to get the code out to github.com in just a minute. So if we got that far, we're good. We'll go to Finish. It's going to make a bunch of stuff. Nice and slow. Turn on my mic, right? Okay. I have an online database class, and I use OBS to do the recordings for it. And I forgot to turn on my mic for one of the recordings, and I got a bunch of emails from students like, "Were you talking?" So that was awesome. I definitely know how to use a computer. Made for a fun morning. All right, so we get a new empty everything here. You notice we have two different Hello Worlds now over on the left. Right? This was the original one that we did. We just put anywhere. I put it on my desktop. I don't really care where you put it. We don't need it. So we could copy paste, or we could do it all again by hand. Totally up to you. It's not a whole lot of typing, so I'm going to do it all again. If you want to copy paste yours, that's fine. But because I don't want to get confused, if you hover over in project view, it's real small here, but it says, hey, it's a Java project in C, users, Eric C, desktop Hello World. It'll tell you where it is. So this is the desktop version. I don't want this one. I'm going to close that one down. So you can right click and close the project, because I don't want to get confused. I'm going to close that Hello World Java as well. I can open up my new project that's in my GitHub directory. It has a really long path here. That's the one I want. We'll come out to the Hello World Java here. And now you'll notice it turns green. So Netbeans knows what Git is. It's a development environment. Developers know what the Git source control tool is. It actually works with it really nicely. There are ways to do it directly in Netbeans. I tend to shy away from those because the GitHub desktop client will work for no matter what IDE you use or what language you use. It'll always be the same client. Versus if you use Visual Studio, you do it one way. If you use Netbeans, you do it one way. If you use Eclipse, you do it one way. If you use Visual Studio Code, you do it one way. I don't know. So whatever you prefer. I'm going to show you how to use the GitHub desktop client because I think it's nice and easy. But you notice it's green. Green means it's new. So it knows it was put into a Git repository. So if you go back to the GitHub desktop client now, you're going to see a bunch of stuff. So orange means a file was modified. So we've added to our git ignore file. It says, hey, please ignore hello world nb project private. Ignore everything in my private folder, please. Don't upload private things. That's pretty good, right? We want that here. Just if this file changes, let it change, right? Just be okay with it. Then we see a bunch of that other junk we saw that just gets generated before. A build, a manifest, a build, a gen files, a project properties, a project XML. Those are all great. Those are all Netbeans files. I like them, right? That way Netbeans knows it's a project. What we care about is this last one on the list, hello world, hello world.java. And you'll see a bunch of things in green. Sorry, the font's a little small here. Sorry. I think I can make that bigger. So green means it's new. So this green means it's a new file. Now what you can do in Git, there's like three things we do. The first one is you make commits. A commit in Git is just a snapshot of the folder, all the contents of the folder at that point in time. So a commit says, okay, everything that's in there, save this point in time. I want to commit it. Once you have a commit, it's really, really, really hard to lose it. It is possible. If you go to the internet and Google deleting repositories and undoing stuff, Git will let you do it because sometimes developers need to do stupid things or undo stupid things. But typically we don't do that, and that's really frowned upon to delete commits. So once it's committed, it's there in the history forever. which is really good because that way you can actually look back and see the history of this project and all these sorts of things. For our school projects, not that interesting, but for like an actual enterprise piece of software, you can look back and see, hey, when was the last time this file changed? And you can see who did it and when they did it, which is really helpful. So what you have to do for a commit is you have this box down here that says summary. The summary is required. Now, most organizations have some sort of standard around what goes in here. I could care less. Again, more meaningful is always better. Right? So I'll say, hello world, project started. Again, doesn't really matter, but the commit message here, the commit summary, will show up on github.com. You'll be able to see things and you'll see your commit message. That's why it's nice to have something meaningful. If you just put blah in there, then all you see is blah. Believe it or not, people do it all the time, but that's okay. Once it's there, then your commit button, this nice big blue button here, should light up. We can say commit to main. So Git has this idea of branches. We're not going to get into that in the software engineering class. I think you talk about branches and get into stuff like that. I have to check with Mr. Nasser and see. But I'm going to hit commit, and it's going to think about it. So it says, please save this snapshot. This point in time, this is what the folder looks like. These are the contents. Great. That's the one thing we interact with. Then we will push. So because Git is a distributed source control system, your local copy has a change, has a commit that github.com doesn't have. So github.com serves as the central repository that everyone has to synchronize with. So you can work on 10 different computers or have 10 different people working all in the same project. They can make local changes and then they can push them or synchronize them to your central location. In this case, github.com. So now you'll see there's a push button here. There's a blue push button here. You can go to repository and click push. Again, 5 different ways. You can hit Control P if you want to push. Whatever you prefer, click the push button. It's going to think again for a minute. After it's done thinking, github.com should have it. Now for us, we're only ever working on it on one computer. The virtual desktop should be the same whether you log in from home or from here because it should be attached to your username. Should be fine, but commits are free. And once github.com has it, they make their money by not losing people's code. They won't lose your code. So commit early and often is my best advice. Because once it's committed, the dog can't eat your homework, the power can't go out, you can't, something stepped on your laptop, I don't know, whatever excuses happen, and life happen. Like my toddler has poured coffee on my laptop before. I shouldn't have let him into my office, but he got in there and was like, oh, coffee. This is laptop number 3.
What if your dog takes out the GitHub server?
I would be impressed. That would be an impressive dog.
New treats for the dog.
Yeah.
We need to have a talk.
So once you've pushed, then you're going to go to repository, view on GitHub, and you should see the files out on github.com. Now you'll see a folder called Hello World. Remember, a project in Netbeans is just a folder. So I can click this folder and it will show me what's inside of it. It says, oh, hey, there's a folder called source. It's helpful. And it says, hey, source is empty. There's a folder called Hello World inside a source that has something. So that's why it's source/Hello World, because source didn't have anything other than another empty folder. Just a shortcut. We can click on that one. We can see hello world.java. We can click on that one. Now you can see the contents should match exactly what we have on our computer. I can zoom this one in. Oh, wrong direction. Right. Again, it's just empty right now, but you should see everything that you had if we were able to commit and push. If you didn't yet, I'll walk around in like 2 more minutes, and I can help you out with this. The last thing we're going to do is actually make it talk to the user. Right, so we have the starting point. I'm going to come back to Netbeans. We're going to come back in here. If you just want to copy paste what you had, that's fine. Again, we just said hello world. Or you can even skip the hello world line, right? We'll just say, what is your name? Your name. And then we had a scanner. We called it SC equals a new scanner, given system.in. And then it says, I don't know what a scanner is. We click the light bulb. We say, yes, please import scanner. And that one's happy. And we'll say, I have a string. I'm going to call it name equals sc.next line.
So when you now want us to use util after it says.
You can if you want. The auto suggestion doesn't. So I tend to just do it in individuals. Yep, so my string name, and then that's the next line, and I'll print out again, hi there, plus name. Now that's it. That's the whole thing. Again, you could just copy paste what you had before, but it's always good practice to type it at least once or twice. It shouldn't be too bad. And then just make sure you save. And you'll notice the title here kind of turns bluish. So blue is telling you the file's been modified, and GitHub doesn't have it yet. So if I have all that in there and I come back to my GitHub client, it's going to say, hey, this file's been changed, and you'll see line level differences. So at line 7, there is now, or after 7, there's now a new line 8 and 9. Line 8 has my import. Line 9 is just a blank thing here. I no longer have this to do, and I have all my actual code. So Git will track things at the line level for you. So you can see, oh, this thing changed here, this line changed here, this line changed here, if you're doing commits that often, which is fantastic. And a lot of times that's what happens in enterprise software, is you'll need to change little snippets of things at a time. And I should probably run it, make sure it works. Let me try and run it. Oh, mine hates me too. Occasionally, the plugins for Netbeans get really confused. So if you hit run and it doesn't do anything or do what you expect it to do, if you right-click your project and go to Properties, there's this option under Compiling that says Compile on Save. The NB Java C plugin is supposed to do this for you, and sometimes that plugin just sucks. And I haven't figured out why yet. So if you uncheck that, then you hit run, it should actually do the right thing. Thought it was fixed in 12.4, but apparently not. All right, now I get what's your name. I'll say Eric. It says, hi there, Eric. So it looks like it should do what it's supposed to do here. Again, this doesn't need to make a whole lot of sense yet. It's the very first night. The next chapter will get into a lot of what is this type, what are our variable names, all this other stuff. We just want to see if we can get something working, get it out in GitHub, see the changes here. So I'll give it another commit summary. This is the required piece here. So this is project 0 done or something like that. I'll commit and then I'll push. Now I still have my browser window open. You could go through it again if you wanted to find it again. So I'm just gonna hit refresh and I should see the new stuff. If you can see it on github.com, I'll be able to see it on github.com. Right, the last thing we're going to do, and what you're going to submit to Desire to Learn. If you go back up to the top, scroll up to the top of this page, you'll see this little link for pull requests. You click on that one, and then you click on feedback. This is a GitHub-specific workflow. This idea of having pull requests is common to Git, but doing it here on a website is one of the things github.com sells as a service. This is something cool that it does to make this easier for you. So you click on feedback. This URL here is what I'd like you to turn in to Desire to Learn. So it has github.com, Oakland Community College, CIS 1500, Project 0, Fall 2021, your username, /pull/1. This is the first pull request for this repository. What's cool about this page here is I can come to the Files Changed tab, and I can scroll down and ignore all the other garbage stuff here, and I can find your Java code. And if there's a particular line that I want to leave you a note about, I can click right in here, and I can leave a note at that line. And I can say, you know, sure, leave a note. I don't know what to say about this. There's nothing wrong with it. All right, here, I'll make fun of this. Why use the variable name SC? What is an SC? I like to make fun of people's variable names. The idea that when you pick a name, it should be meaningful. SC means nothing, really. I get that's what the book does, so that's what I did, but I'll just make fun of it. You won't lose points, but I'll just make fun of you, right? So like the variable for name, that is your name. Sure, like that's fine. If you just said N, Java wouldn't care. Right? You could say this is N, and as long as you use N over here, it's fine. You just have a variable called N. That's a terrible variable name, though, but Java doesn't care. Right? The code that we write is for people. Because people need to be able to read and understand and write the code. And when you move on, if you get a job in software engineering and write software for a living, you're going to write some software and then you move on to bigger and better things. And some new poor person is going to have to come and maintain your code and make changes to it and bug fix things or add new features. And the next person is probably a psychopath. So if you left some terribly written code with awful variable names, they're going to come find you. All right, that's probably kind of a bad joke. I'm sorry. But yeah, like you need to use nice names because it's for people. Java could care less. One of the other fun things about Java is that the white space here doesn't matter at all. All of these new lines are to make it readable. As long as you have your semicolons, Java will do that bit of code. I can throw all this on one line here, like that, and then this one over here, that can go on one line, and then My curly braces can come over here. These are comments. We haven't got to that yet. We'll get to that next chapter. That would confuse it if it's on those lines, but essentially you can have a single line of code and Java will be happy with it. Right? Java is cool with this. This is my entire program. The general rule of thumb is if the person looking at your code has to use the left and right scroll bar, you've screwed up. So everything should fit on the screen. Now my text is zoomed in a little bit, and most people have widescreen monitors nowadays. Programmers fight over the dumbest things, I'll be honest. So like at one point, there was a line in every editor at like 120 characters, and if you went past that line, you get in trouble. We're just weird. I don't know why. And recently, GitHub.com would not even have a scroll bar for left and right. They refused to add one, and because they said if you have to scroll left and right, you did it wrong. We're not going to help you. They're a little bit nicer now, but that sort of thing. Programmers are weird. But this will run right with no white space. So the white space is for people. Java could care less. As long as you have the right curly braces and parentheses and semicolons in, it's going to do the right thing for you. We'll say Eric. Now this looks horrible, and I don't want that change. I don't want it to go from all of this to that single thing. So I can either undo. I almost don't want to show you this, but Git has a shortcut here to discard changes. If you don't like what you changed, you can go back to the previous commit. So we'll undo all of the things it shows here. This is dangerous because if you discard your changes and you wanted them, they're gone. You can't get them back. There's no undo button. So I typically don't tell people to do that in GitHub. I'm just going to come back here and Control Z a bunch. Because this is probably safer. Name. All right, and I'm back here. I've got it committed. Now, you'll notice there's no changes. I went back to exactly what there was before. So GitHub.com says, oh, there's nothing to do here. No changes have been made to the file. It doesn't care that I hit save and it's been modified recently because there's no changes to the text. So just grab this feedback pull request, turn that one into desire to learn for project 0, and that's how you get your points. Right? Points for doing it. You ask them their name, you say hi name, you commit to github.com, you don't touch file upload. I'm not going to show you the file upload button because I don't want you to use it. Use the commit button, right? Use the GitHub desktop client, commit and push. That's the right workflow for us to use. And then you give me the feedback pull request link. You actually give me the right link when you submit. So all you have to do is paste it into the box when you submit. If you can see it on github.com, I'll be able to see it on github.com. Okay? So that's what we're doing. That's due next week by 6 p.m. Hopefully you walk out of here tonight and it's done. The only piece of homework we'll have then is the syllabus quiz, which should be 3 points, like we did it basically in class and went over it. And then I'll post a chapter 1 quiz. You'll have all week to do that one before next week. Probably have that one due by 6 p.m. so I can go over the answers in class. That's typically what I do for that. So just make sure that quiz is done before class starts. That way I can go over the answers in class. The quiz questions will help you prep for half of the midterm. When we get there, half the midterm is like quiz style questions, and then the other half is like write me a piece of code that does something.
Debugger for that.
You can use Netbeans. Yeah, go for it. Yep, definitely. All right. Any other questions? So if it's not working for you yet, I'll walk around. I can help you. That's all I got for tonight. So I'll stop streaming here. And then again, if you want to come in person, great. If you want to attend online, I'll be on Twitch. I've got chat up on the screen here. I'll try and keep an eye on that. Or if you just want to watch the YouTube exports, you can do that as well. The only other required thing that you'll have to do, like not even in person, but you'll have to synchronously do is a presentation of your final project with me. If from now on you want to be async, perfectly fine up till the final project. When you present it, I need you to present it live. I don't want a recording of it because sometimes I might ask questions like, hey, how did you do this thing? Or show me this or something about that. So totally up to you folks. I'm hoping that experiment goes well and I can keep doing it. So we'll see how it goes. And I'm happy to hear what you folks think about that as well moving forward. All right, awesome.